Twisted Fangs by Celeste King.
Roth, Thanksgiving is approaching and you know what I'm thankful for.
What's that, Samara?
A brand new story straight from the world of Protheka.
Is that so?
Oh yeah. I just hope the dinner is just as hot as the spices in this story.
Where you can find all the juicy details that YouTube doesn't want to share, even though it's the season of sharing.
Head over to worldsofprotheka.com and use code YouTube30 for a sweet discount.
Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.
That lets us know how thankful you are for these spicy stories and helps Celeste continue bringing you full free audiobooks for your listening pleasure.
You're listening to Celeste King's Twisted Fangs.
Chapter 1. Rhea. The marble beneath my hands gleams with each circular motion of the cloth, reflecting the ornate crystal chandeliers above. My knees ache against the hard floor, but I don't dare shift position. A bead of sweat rolls down my temple, and I resist the urge to wipe it away. 2 dark elf nobles glide past me. Their silk robes whisper against the floor I just cleaned, and their boots leave fresh marks on the wet marble. The human stock has been particularly disappointing this season, one says, as if I'm not even here. His silver hair catches the light as he turns to his companion. Indeed, though they make adequate servants if properly trained, the other says. They both start laughing at the remark. Their laughs echo off the vaulted ceiling as they continue walking down the hall. I press the cloth harder against the floor. My raw knuckles scream in protest. The familiar sting of soap seeps into my blisters, but I keep scrubbing. Show weakness, and they notice. Get noticed, and my hand instinctively touches the scar on my wrist. You there. A sharp voice suddenly cuts through my thoughts. You missed a spot. I look up to see Lady Morana standing over me, her piercing red eyes fixed on me. She points one long, pale finger at a perfectly clean section of floor. Yes, my lady. The words taste like ash in my mouth. I shuffle over on my knees, head bowed, and begin scrubbing the already spotless marble. Harder, she commands. I can still see a smudge. My arms burn as I put more pressure into each stroke. The rough cloth tears at my palms, but I don't stop. Can't stop. The lady's boots remain in my peripheral vision, a silent threat. These humans, she sighs. So slow, so inefficient. Sometimes I wonder why we keep them at all. I bite my tongue until I taste copper, focusing on the mindless circles of my hands, back and forth, round and round, like the endless cycle of days in this gilded prison. One day I promise myself, as I have every day before. One day they'll see me, really see me, and they'll regret it. The marble beneath my hands is as cold and unyielding as the hearts of those who walk upon it. I pause for a moment. My gaze is drawn to the small window high above. The sky beyond is a tapestry of vibrant blue. It's a reminder of all that I've never known, a world beyond servitude and suffering. I can hear them down the hall, the other slaves. Their whispers are laced with the yearning for a life untethered. They huddle in the corner, their voices barely above a breath. Did you see it, the caravan? One asks, his voice tinged with awe. I heard it came from the borderlands, where humans dwell free beneath the sky. The other, a woman with lines of fatigue etched into her face, nods. Yes, and they said the fields stretch on forever, like an ocean of green, and the cities, oh, the cities reach for the heavens, crafted by our own hands, she exclaims. My heart quickens at the thought. Fields of green, cities of wonder, they speak of these places as if they are worlds away, yet they exist somewhere out there, beyond the oppressive confines of this estate. I cling to their words, a lifeline in a sea of despair. I steal a glance over my shoulder at the Dark Elves, their attention diverted by matters of no concern to us. I inch closer to the slaves, my hands stilled, my curiosity aflame. And the people, I whisper, my voice a mere echo of my burning question. What are they like, those who live in such places? The man turns to me, his eyes reflecting the same longing that gnaws at my soul. They are free, he says, the word hanging in the air like a promise. They live as they choose, unshackled by the will of others. I let the idea wash over me, the image of a life lived on one's own terms. It's a foreign concept, as alien to me as the Dark Elves are to the sun. Yet it kindles a fire within me, a desire so fierce it threatens to consume me. I return to my task, the cloth moving in rhythmic circles, but my mind is no longer here. It soars above the fields, dances through the streets of those towering cities. I imagine myself among those free people, my hair unbound, my steps unhindered. The daydream is a dangerous indulgence, yet I cannot help but succumb to its sweet embrace. It fuels the embers of defiance that simmer in my heart. I am snapped back to reality by the harsh clang of a bell. The other slaves scatter, their dreams dissolving like mist under the scorching gaze of our masters. I rise, my knees aching from the cold, unforgiving floor, and move on to the next hallway. I pass by another window and briefly peer out. The sky is still blue, a canvas of endless possibility. It's a fleeting glimpse of what could be, a silent affirmation that there is a world out there worth fighting for. And as I knot my fist around the soiled cleaning cloth, I make a silent vow to myself. Someday, I will stand in those endless fields and gaze upon those towering cities with my own eyes. Someday, I will be free. But first, I must survive the darkness that looms within these walls. My fingers curl tighter around the damp rag, knuckles white with tension. Through the window, a shaft of late afternoon sunlight streams in, painting the marble floor in hues I'll never truly know. The sunset must be starting, but I've never seen one. Not really. Not beyond these suffocating walls. They say the sky turns to fire, Mary whispers as she comes and kneels beside me. She's one of the few slaves who remembers the outside world. Orange and pink and purple all at once, like nature's trying to outshine itself. I dip my rag in the bucket, wringing it out with more force than necessary. What's orange look like? I ask, my voice tinged with curiosity. Mary pauses her scrubbing. Like the warmth of a candle, but brighter, more alive, she says with a dim sparkle in her eyes. Must be nice. The words come out bitter, and I immediately regret them when I see Mari's face fall. One day, little bird, she says, using the nickname she gave me years ago. One day you'll see it all. I shake my head, focusing on a particularly stubborn scuff mark. Born in chains, die in chains. That's what they say, isn't it? I mutter. Only if you believe it, she replies softly. The sound of approaching footsteps sends us both back to our tasks, heads bowed, shoulders hunched. But Mari's words echo in my mind. Only if you believe it. As if belief alone could break iron shackles and stone walls. Through the window, the light shifts, growing dimmer. Another sunset I'll never see. Another day of freedom I'll never know. The ache in my chest intensifies, spreading like poison through my veins. Stop, all of you up. The sharp command shatters my thoughts. A dark elf overseer claps her hands, the sound echoing off the marble. To the baths now. My knees protest as I stand. Mary grabs my arm, steadying me. The other slaves huddle together as we're herded down the corridor like cattle. The communal bath chamber opens before us, steam rising from pools I've only glimpsed through doorways. The water shimmers with an iridescent sheen I've never seen before. Strip, commands the overseer. Everything off. Rough hands shove us into the water. It's hot, too hot, and smells of unfamiliar flowers. Dark elf attendants descend on us with brushes and soaps, scrubbing until our skin turns pink and raw. "What's happening?" I whisper to Mary as an attendant yanks through my tangled hair. "Quiet!" the attendant hisses. The brush pulls harder, making my eyes water. They drag us out and dry us with soft cloths, softer than anything I've touched before. White dresses appear, flowing things that make my usual rags look like burlap. The material brushes against my skin as they force it over my head. "Hold still!" Another attendant snaps, weaving white flowers into my damp hair. The petals tickle my forehead. Next to me, Mari trembles as they do the same to her. "This isn't good," she breathes, so quietly I barely hear her. White dresses and flowers, they're preparing us for something. My stomach knots. In all my years of slavery, I've never seen anything like this. The Dark Elves never waste such finery on slaves unless... Another bell tolls somewhere in the mansion, deep and ominous. The overseers straighten, their red eyes gleaming with something that makes my blood run cold. "Line up," they command. "It's time."
Chapter 2. Valen. Blood pools beneath my boots, seeping through ancient stone. My sister's screams pierce the night, but my legs won't move. I'm forced to watch, trapped in this cursed memory as dark elf blades flash in the torchlight. "Valen, help us!" my mother pleads as she reaches for me, her fingers stretching across the great hall. The dark elf behind her grins, ears twitching with pleasure as he draws his blade across her throat. "No!" My voice cracks. "Stop this!" But I'm just a ghost here, reliving this nightmare for the 1,000th time. My father fights like the lord he is, his sword claiming 3 lives before they overwhelm him. They don't grant him a quick death. They want him to watch as they slaughter the children. The marble floor turns crimson. Bodies of my kin warriors, healers, children, pile up like cordwood. The metallic stench of blood mingles with smoke as they torch our ancestral home. "I'll kill you all," I whisper, but the words catch in my throat as I spot my youngest sister. She's trying to hide behind a tapestry, small fingers clutching the fabric. A dark elf yanks her out by her hair. My body convulses. The dream shatters. I bolt upright in my makeshift bed, sweat streaming down my chest. My fists clench instinctively. The cave's cool air does nothing to stop the tremors racking my frame. "Same dream," I mutter as I press my palms against my eyes. "Same damn dream." The wound on my neck throbs, their failed attempt to end me. My hands shake as I reach for the water skin. "You're dead," I remind myself. "They think you're dead, and that's how you'll destroy them." The cave's darkness wraps around me like an old friend, but sleep won't return tonight. It never does after these memories surface. I soon step out of the cave into the darkness. My boots barely whisper against the frost-coated ground. The frigid air slices through the night, a stark reminder that winter never truly leaves this forsaken land. My skin, toughened by centuries of warfare, barely registers the chill. My thoughts, however, are ensnared by the past, a tapestry of blood and betrayal woven by dark elf hands. The hilt of my sword, a cold, familiar weight at my side, seems to pulse with a life of its own, thirsting for the blood of those who took everything from me. The night is a canvas of ebony, painted with the faintest brush of silver from a crescent moon. It's the kind of night that cloaks a man's intentions, the perfect shroud for vengeance. My grip tightens around the sword's hilt, the leather worn smooth by centuries of use. "They thought they could erase us," I murmur to the winds, my voice a low growl that blends with the rustle of the trees. "They were wrong." Images of that fateful night crash against my mind's eye, like relentless waves. The flames consuming our ancestral home, the cries of my sisters as they were dragged into the shadows, the laughter of their tormentors echoing in the smoky air. I close my eyes, but the images are etched into my very soul. I will make them pay, I vow, the words slicing through the frosty air like a blade. My senses sharpen, the fracking blood in my veins responding to the surge of primal anger. The world around me comes alive. I can hear the soft whisper of a mouse in the underbrush, smell the damp earth and the faint metallic tang of impending snowfall. I open my eyes, the faint glow of my crimson irises casting an eerie light on the surroundings. You took my family from me, I say, my voice echoing through the woods, a challenge to the darkness. Now I am the Reaper, and your time is running out. A sudden rustle in the bushes nearby jerks my attention. I draw my sword in a fluid motion, the steel singing as it cleaves the air. A pair of frightened doe eyes meet mine, a small woodland creature caught in my fierce gaze. I lower my weapon, a wry chuckle escaping my lips. Not tonight, little one, I tell the creature, sheathing my sword with a flourish. Tonight, my war is with ghosts. The animal scampers away, leaving me once again with the silence of the forest and the echoes of my past. I take a deep breath. The cold air fills my lungs, a stark contrast to the heat of my fury. Valen, the ghost of the Vraken, I say, a self-deprecating smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. A specter seeking justice in a world that has forgotten him. My gaze drifts upwards to the handful of stars twinkling between the cloud-strewn sky. I will avenge you, my sisters, I whisper, a solemn vow carried away by the wind. And then perhaps I can find some semblance of peace. Until that day, I will move through the shadows, a relentless force, an unstoppable storm. The Dark Elves have had centuries to fortify their defenses, to plot and scheme. But they have not reckoned with the fury of a Vraken who has nothing left to lose. Suddenly the wind carries whispers to my ears, a murmur of celebration and dark elf revelry. It's a sound that sets my teeth on edge, a stark reminder of the joy they've stolen from me. A celebration, I muse aloud, my voice a low rumble. They dare to celebrate while my kin rot in unmarked graves. As I stand near the edge of their territory, a shadow among shadows, my crimson eyes scan the horizon for any sign of movement. My fingers twitch, aching for the hilt of my sword. It's more than a weapon. It's a harbinger of the retribution I've sworn to deliver. The Dark Elves think themselves untouchable, secure in their fortresses and their numbers. They're about to learn a painful lesson. No one is beyond my reach. I lean against the gnarled trunk of an ancient tree, its bark rough against my palm. Will I feel anything once they're dead? I ask the night. Will the void in my chest finally close? Or will I be left with nothing but the echo of my own fury? The emptiness of my existence claws at me like a relentless beast. I've been alone for centuries, a solitary predator stalking the night. My hatred for the Dark Elves has been my only companion. I shake off the creeping tendrils of doubt. No! I growl, pushing away from the tree. Revenge is all that matters. It's the flame that keeps me moving forward, the force that drives me through each agonizing day. The night is my ally, cloaking me in its inky embrace as I move silently through the underbrush. My senses, heightened by my Vraken heritage, pick up the faintest sounds. I pause, my body tensing as I detect the presence of others. They're preparing, I murmur, watching from the shadows as dark elf soldiers scurry about, their movements frantic as they prepare for the upcoming festivities. A slow smile spreads across my face, a dangerous promise of the chaos I'm about to unleash. You won't see me coming, I whisper, my voice carried away by the wind. Not until it's too late. I retreat, melting back into the forest, my mind already formulating a plan. The Dark Elves may have numbers, but I have centuries of experience, honed by loss and fueled by an unquenchable thirst for vengeance. My path soon takes me to a small clearing, the moonlight casting a silver glow on the ground. I stop, my gaze drawn to the stars twinkling above once more, their silent sentinels bearing witness to my solitary war against an entire race. I am the ghost of the Fraken, I declare, my voice echoing through the stillness. The Dark Elves' worst nightmare, the harbinger of their doom. I drop to one knee, my hand instinctively reaching for the dagger at my side. The cold steel is a comforting presence, a tangible reminder of the power I wield. With a swift, practiced motion, I draw a symbol in the dirt, the sigil of my fallen house. For you, my family, I vow, a fierce determination burning within me. Your deaths will not be in vain. With the vow spoken, I rise to my full height, my resolve hardening like the steel of my blade. The Dark Elves will pay for their sins, and I will be the one to collect the debt. As I turn to leave the clearing, a newfound sense of purpose fills me. The emptiness is still there, a yawning chasm in my soul, but it's tempered by the knowledge that my vengeance is close at hand. Let them celebrate, I murmur, a dark chuckle escaping my lips. It will make their fall all the more satisfying. With a final glance at the makeshift grave marker, I disappear into the night back to my cavern.
Chapter 3. Rhea. The air in the grand hall is thick with a silence that presses against my skin. It's a silent testament to the gravity of this occasion. The marble beneath my feet echoes the pounding of my heart, a relentless rhythm that feels loud enough to draw the attention of every dark elf in the room. I stand rigid in the line of human slaves. Each of us is a stark contrast to the nobles in their finery, our white dresses hanging on our frames like wilted petals. The Dark Elves' eyes rake over us, appraising, calculating. Their gazes are like the touch of a winter frost, leaving a chill in their wake. I fight the urge to shudder, to shrink back from their scrutiny. Aelith, the head of the household, steps forward like a predator stalking its prey. His voice, when it cuts through the silence, is as cold and sharp as the icicles that hang from the eaves of this forsaken mansion. Tonight we honour an age-old tradition, he proclaims, his eyes gleaming with a cruel light that makes my blood run cold. A hunt, to entertain and to remind us of our place in this world. A murmur ripples through the crowd of Dark Elves, a sound that is both eager and satisfied. My breath hitches in my throat, and I can feel the blood drain from my face, leaving me even paler than usual. The hunt. It's a word that carries the weight of finality, a word that has haunted my nightmares since childhood. I glance sidelong at the slaves on either side of me, their faces masks of terror and resignation. We are the potential offerings, the sacrificial lambs to their twisted amusement. The thought of being pursued through the dark, foreboding woods that border the estate sends a shudder through me. I've heard tales of those who were chosen before, their fates sealed in a heartbeat. None have ever returned. Aelith begins to pace slowly in front of us, his eyes sharp as he surveys his selection. Each year, we choose a select few to represent the pinnacle of our dominion, he says, his voice carrying across the hushed hall. My heart is a caged bird, fluttering wildly against my ribs. I can feel the gaze of every dark elf like a physical touch, each one a brand that marks me as less than human, as property to be disposed of at their leisure. This year's tributes, Aelith continues, his voice drawing out the moment, must provide a challenge worthy of our skills. The word tribute hangs in the air, a spectre that chills me to the bone. I can't breathe, can't think. The room tilts dangerously, and I dig my nails into my palms, the pain anchoring me to the present. The grand hall is a mausoleum of whispers and dread as the human slaves are dismissed one by one. Each name called is a reprieve, a stay of execution, and with each announcement the crowd thins, leaving a trail of discarded hopes in its wake. I stand among the remains, the heaviness of my impending fate a leaden mantle upon my shoulders. Aelith prowls before us like a shadow given form. His eyes, void of mercy, soon land on me. "You," he says, his voice a serpent's hiss, curling around my heart and squeezing tight. You will be our tributes for the hunt." He points to a few human slaves, including me, and the air is sucked from the room. Chaos erupts. Screams rend the silence. Some try to flee, a futile attempt at escape that ends in brutal finality. The Dark Elves, amused by our panic, cut down 2 who dare to run. Their bodies crumple to the ground like broken dolls. The message is clear. Resistance is not only futile, it's deadly. I remain still, a statue carved from ice. My heart hammers against my ribcage, a frantic drumbeat that echoes the tumult in my mind. I've always known this day might come, but knowing and experiencing are 2 different beasts. The former is a shadow, a whisper in the dark. The latter is a roaring blaze that consumes all in its path. The room spins, a kaleidoscope of fear and helplessness. I watch, numb, as the other chosen ones break under the weight of their despair. Some weep silently, tears carving rivers down their cheeks. Others stand defiant, their spirit unbroken even in the face of certain death. I envy them, their ability to cling to anger and defiance when all I feel is a vast, consuming emptiness. Aelith's lips curl into a cruel smile as he surveys his handiwork. "Let this be a reminder," he announces, his voice carrying effortlessly over the din, "of your place in this world. You live by our grace, and you die by our pleasure." His words are a slap to the face, a stark reminder of our status as nothing more than chattel. I want to scream, to rage against the injustice of it all, but the words die in my throat, choked by the oppressive air. The Dark Elves soon herd us away. We are ushered into a smaller chamber, away from the prying eyes of the nobility. Here, the reality of our situation sinks in, a cold, hard truth that settles in the pit of my stomach. I am to be hunted, a plaything for the Dark Elves' amusement. The forest that borders the estate, once a symbol of the unknown, of freedom, is now my arena. The thought of it, of running for my life through the shadow-draped trees, fills me with a dread so profound that it threatens to pull me under. As I sit in the smaller chamber, the walls press in around me like the jaws of some great beast. The air is thick with the scent of fear and despair, a noxious perfume that clings to the stone walls and fills my lungs with each shaky breath. The other tributes huddle together, their whispers a hushed symphony of terror. I remain apart, my thoughts a maelstrom of memories and regrets. I think of the stories told in hushed tones during the long nights, tales of tributes past who were hunted like animals, their screams piercing the silence of the dark woods. I remember one story in particular, a girl not much older than myself, who was caught and tortured for hours before her merciful end finally came. The image of her broken body is seared into my mind, a grim reminder of the fate that awaits me. I clench my fists. My eyes, ever vigilant, scan the room, taking in the faces of those who share my doom. We are now bound together by fear and the cruel whims of our dark elf masters. A girl to my left, her eyes wide and glassy, begins to weep silently. I want to offer her some words of comfort, but what comfort can be found in the face of such terror? Instead, I turn away, my gaze falling upon a young man with fire in his eyes. He catches my look and holds it, a silent conversation passing between us. There is defiance in his stance, a spark of rebellion that ignites something within me. "We're not dead yet," he says, his voice barely above a whisper, meant only for me. I nod, a small spark of resolve flickering to life amidst the overwhelming dread. "No," I reply, my voice steady despite the tremor in my heart. "We're not." The door to the chamber creaks open, and a dark elf guard steps inside. His eyes sweep over us, cold and indifferent. "Prepare yourselves," he commands, his voice a cruel lash that cuts through the silence. The hunt begins at dawn. The room erupts into a chorus of whimpers and murmurs, but the guard pays them no mind. He turns on his heel and leaves, the door closing with a finality that chills me to the bone. I draw in a deep breath, the air heavy with the heaviness of our collective fate. I think of my parents, of the life of freedom they've been denied, and a fierce determination takes root in my soul. I may be a slave, I may soon be hunted, but I refuse to be a victim. I will survive this hunt and spit in the face of those who seek to break me. I rise to my feet, my movements deliberate and measured. The others watch me, their eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "We need to fight, to survive this," I say, my voice carrying across the room. The young man with the fiery eyes meets my gaze. "I'm with you," he says, his words a lifeline in the midst of the storm. The others soon join in, their initial shock giving way to a shared resolve. We are tributes, yes, but we are also human, and we will not go gently. We will face the hunt with courage and a fierce determination to survive.
Chapter 4. Valen. The morning sun claws its way over the horizon and casts long shadows across the cobblestone streets of the village. I blend into the recesses of an alleyway, my presence all but swallowed by the early dawn gloom. A low, drunken laughter echoes off the stone walls. A few feet ahead of me, a dark elf guard stumbles from the tavern's embrace. "Couldn't handle your ale, Lear?" Another guard calls out, his voice tinged with mockery. Lear, the drunken guard, waves a dismissive hand, his words slurring together. "Bah, it's not the ale that's the problem. It's the boredom, the endless patrolling. If only the excitement would start soon." My interest peaks and I step from the shadows, my boots silent on the cobblestones. The scent of spilled ale and stale bread wafts from the tavern's open door. I make my way inside. When I enter, I pull my cloak tight around my shoulders, hiding the telltale signs of my Vraken heritage. The interior is dimly lit. The air is thick with smoke and the stench of unwashed bodies. A crew of dark elves populate the room. Their boisterous conversations are a cacophony against the wooden rafters. I settle into a corner, my back to the wall. My eyes soon scan the room. A group of merchants huddle together in the center of the tavern. Their voices, though hushed, carry the tantalizing hint of information. I lean back, allowing the murmur of their dialogue to wash over me. "The nobles are growing restless," one merchant says. "They are eagerly awaiting the hunt." Another merchant, a woman with sharp eyes, interjects, "Ah, yes, the yearly tribute hunt. I've heard they chose a few special humans as their quarry this year." My fingers twitch. The tribute hunt. I've heard rumblings in the past, but dismissed them as just tales of foolish dark elves. "It's to take place deep within the forest," the first merchant continues, his eyes darting around the room as if the very walls might be listening. "They say the nobles have outfitted the humans with tokens, trinkets that will lead the hunters to them." The woman merchant leans in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And when the nobles have had their fill of the chase, they'll gather for a feast. The bodies of the fallen will be strung up as trophies." A growl rumbles in my throat, the faint glow of my crimson eyes intensifying. The thought of the dark elves reveling in their cruel sport stirs a tempest of fury within me. My mind races with the possibility of turning their celebration into a slaughter, but doubt gnaws at the edges of my resolve. Is this the right time to strike? The risk is great, not just to myself, but to any humans caught in the crossfire. I step forward. The merchants fall silent, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. I toss a few coins onto the table, the metal clinking softly. "Keep talking," I command, my voice as cold and sharp as a blade. I'm interested in these tribute hunts. The merchants exchange wary glances before the woman speaks up. Well, stranger, it's not often we see one of your kind taking an interest in dark elf affairs. I flash a predatory grin, my eyes gleaming in the dim light. Perhaps it's time things changed. The conversation shifts, the merchants eager to share their knowledge for the right price. As they speak, I formulate a plan, the gears of war slowly turning in my mind. The nobles will not expect an attack during their so-called festivities, a perfect opportunity to strike a blow for my fallen clan. Yet, as I leave the tavern, the heaviness of my decision settles upon my shoulders like a shroud. The sun, now higher in the sky, casts a harsh light on the village. I step back into the shadows, my mind a whirlwind of strategy and bloodlust. The forest swallows me as I leave the village behind. The information from the tavern burns in my mind like acid. A tribute hunt. My voice cuts through the morning silence. Perfect timing, or the worst possible moment. I pause at a fallen log and run my fingers over the rough bark. The wood splinters under my touch as my grip tightens. The scent of decay and moss fills my nostrils, grounding me in the present moment. Centuries of planning, and now this. I flex my fingers, watching the morning light dance across my scarred knuckles. The nobles will be distracted, their guard down during the festivities, but they'll also be armed, ready for the hunt. A crow takes flight overhead, its wings beating against the crisp morning air. My jaw clenches. Damn it all. I slam my fist into the log, sending splinters flying. I can't waste this opportunity, but rushing in... The words die in my throat. Strategy has kept me alive this long, helped me survive centuries of guerrilla warfare against the Dark Elves. But the thought of them celebrating, of more innocent blood being spilled for their entertainment, makes my blood boil. The forest holds its breath, waiting. Just like me. Just like my revenge. Something's coming, I mutter. The words taste like copper on my tongue. I can feel it in my bones. The morning wind shifts, carrying with it the scent of change. My muscles tense. Every instinct within me screams that this hunt will be different, that it will alter everything I've planned for. I shake my head, trying to clear these thoughts. Focus, plan, strike, I say aloud. The mantra grounds me, but doesn't quiet the storm brewing within me. Suddenly, the faintest rustle of leaves draws my attention. Instinct takes over. My body tenses as I slip into the predator's crouch that I've honed over centuries. I'm not alone. The Dark Elves from the village tavern, their presence reeks of curiosity mixed with fear. Are they merely intrigued by the stranger in their midst? Or have they recognized the threat I pose? The answer comes swiftly as the first Dark Elf steps into the clearing, his eyes narrowed and a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "Look what we have here," he drawls, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword. "A lone wanderer in our woods. What business have you, Fraken?" I straighten, meeting his gaze with a cold stare that has sent many a foe scurrying for the shadows. "I could ask you the same," I reply, my voice steady and low. "This is not a path frequented by your kind unless you're looking for trouble." The Dark Elf chuckles, the sound grating against the quiet murmur of the forest. "Trouble finds those who seek it," he retorts, drawing his blade with a metallic hiss. My response is immediate and visceral. I let loose a growl that resonates with the primal fury of my kind. In a flash, I'm upon him, my movements a blur of speed and strength. The first Dark Elf doesn't even have time to scream. My hand clamps around his throat, lifting him off the ground with ease. His sword clatters to the forest floor. With a savage twist, I snap his neck, the sound echoing through the stillness. The others surge forward, their faces contorted with rage and disbelief. They're no match for me. a warrior hardened by loss and fueled by an unquenchable thirst for revenge. I move among them like death itself, my sword singing through the air as I carve a path of destruction. Each kill is swift, efficient, a testament to the countless battles I fought. I revel in the carnage, the bloodlust coursing through my veins as I tear through the Dark Elves with ruthless precision. When the last of them falls, I stand amidst the carnage, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. The forest is silent once more. I wipe my blade clean on the cloak of a fallen Dark Elf, my gaze scanning the surroundings for any sign of additional threats. Satisfied that I'm alone, I dissolve into the shadows, leaving no trace of the violence that transpired. As I retreat deeper into the woods, my thoughts return to the tribute hunt. The Dark Elves see it as a celebration, a display of their dominion over the lesser races. But I see it now for what it truly is, a chance to strike a blow from which they may never recover. The decision solidifies within me, a resolve as unyielding as the steel of my sword. I will infiltrate their hunt, turn their festivities into a graveyard, and perhaps in the chaos, I'll find more than just the satisfaction of my revenge. Perhaps I'll find a way to honor the memory of my fallen clan, to finally lay them to rest. But for now I vanish into the embrace of the forest, a solitary figure shrouded in the promise of retribution. The Dark Elves have made their move, and now, so have I. Let the games begin.
Chapter 5. Rhea. The forest is a labyrinth of shadows as I'm pushed forward, my hands bound, the trinket on my chest jingling with each step, a cruel reminder of the game I've been forced to play. I can hear the Dark Elves' laughter echoing in the distance as they prepare for the hunt. My heart hammers against my ribs as fear courses through my veins. We are given a head start, and I break into a run. The forest feels alive with the sounds of my own panic. Branches claw at my face, drawing stinging lines across my skin, and my breath comes in ragged gasps that tear at my throat. The ground beneath me is a treacherous dance of roots and rocks, waiting to trip me up, to bring me down. And it does. My foot catches on something unyielding. Pain lances through my ankle as I twist and fall. The impact knocks the wind out of me, and I lay there, gasping for air, the taste of copper filling my mouth. My leg throbs in time with my heartbeat. I look down and see a deep gash on my shin weeping blood onto the forest floor. Panic grips me, cold and unyielding. I can't die here. Not like this. As I lay there, I realise I have to break my hands free from the bindings if I'm to survive at all. I spot a fallen tree close by and slowly inch my way up next to it. The rough bark of the fallen tree scrapes against my bound wrists as I work the rope against it. My shoulders burn from the awkward angle, but I keep soaring. Back and forth. Back and forth. Come on, I whisper through gritted teeth. Break, damn you. The rope frays strand by strand. Sweat trickles down my neck despite the cool forest air. I've done this before, in secret practice behind the mansion's kitchens. The memory of those stolen moments gives me strength. A branch snaps somewhere in the forest. I freeze, my heart thundering in my chest. Nothing, just the wind. I return to my task with renewed urgency. The rope catches on a particularly sharp edge of bark, and I feel it giving way. My wrists are raw, bleeding, but I'm almost there. Just a little more, I mutter. The final strand parts with a snap that seems too loud in the quiet forest. I bring my hands in front of me, flexing my fingers to restore circulation. The rope falls to the ground. Get up, Rhea! I hiss to myself, my voice barely more than a whisper. Move! I push against the ground, trying to rise, but the pain is a fierce fire that burns through my resolve. I collapse back onto the earth, the jingle of the trinket a mocking sound. Please, I beg the silent forest, the words torn from somewhere deep inside. Help me. The forest, my intended grave, hums with life around me, mocking my struggle to stand. My leg is a blaze of agony, and the metallic tang of blood fills my senses. I clutch the trinket around my neck. The cold metal is a stark contrast to the heat of my own fear. They're coming for me, the Dark Elves who find sport in the suffering of others. But beneath the terror, a fire burns. I refuse to be their entertainment, to end my days as a hunted animal in these cursed woods. I have survived every cruelty they've thrown at me. I will not break now. I grit my teeth and attempt to rise again, my hands sinking into the damp earth. My leg protests. I bite back a scream, determined not to give them the satisfaction of hearing my anguish. The sounds of the distant celebration are a discordant symphony, a backdrop to my own personal battle. But then the laughter turns to yelling, the melodies of their instruments replaced by a cacophony of chaos. My heart skips a beat. What's happening? I strain my ears, the usual buzz of the forest now overshadowed by the panic unfolding at the celebration. The Dark Elves' shouts carry through the trees. Something has disturbed their festivities, and the realization sends a thrill through me. What's going on? I whisper to myself, the possibility of salvation sparking a flicker of hope within me. I take a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs, steadying my racing heart. With a final burst of determination, I push myself up, ignoring the pain that shoots through my leg. I lean against a tree for support, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. You're not finished yet, I tell myself. It's a mantra, a promise. I will not die here. I glance down at my injury, the blood seeping through my torn pants. It's worse than I thought, but I can't focus on that now. I tear a strip of fabric from the hem of my shirt and use it to fashion a makeshift bandage, wincing as I tighten it around my wound. The sounds of panic and fear from the celebration grow louder, and I can't help but wonder what could be responsible for this shift. A rival family, a vengeful spirit. The forest is full of tales, whispers of ancient beings that lurk in the shadows. Perhaps one of them has taken offence to the Dark Elves' cruel games. I allow myself a moment of dark amusement at the thought. It serves them right. With the tree's support, I manage a few tentative steps, each one sending waves of pain radiating up my leg. But I push through, my survival instinct overriding the screaming protests of my body. The forest is a maze of shadows and pain as I navigate slowly through the underbrush. My leg is a white-hot brand. Each movement I make is a fresh slice of agony. I grit my teeth. There's a coppery taste of blood in my mouth from where I've bitten my tongue to keep from crying out. I can't afford to be discovered. Not now. Not when the chaos from the celebration might just be my ticket to freedom. I imagine slipping into the crowd of Dark Elves, unnoticed amidst the panic, finding a fellow human slave to aid me. But the forest is vast, and my strength is waning. My vision blurs. The world tilts dangerously, and I fall to my knees. Refusing to give in, I start to crawl, my hands sinking into the damp earth. I pause, pressing my forehead against the cool bark of a tree, trying to steady my breath and my thoughts. Who or what could be causing panic at the heart of the Dark Elves' revelry? A part of me wants to believe it's a sign, a twist of fate that might finally lead me to freedom. Help, I whisper to the forest. I need to get to the celebration. The forest, ever silent, offers no reply, but the wind picks up, carrying with it the faintest hint of smoke and the unmistakable scent of fear. It's a smell I know all too well. I gain a sliver of strength and pull myself back up to my feet. I push on forward using the tree trunks to steady myself. My injured leg leaves a trail of blood on the forest floor, a macabre map of my struggle for survival. I think of my mother's stories, tales of humans who once thrived beyond these oppressive woods, and I wonder if I'll ever see the world she spoke of with such longing. The sounds of the celebration grow louder, a cacophony of shouts and screams that cuts through the quiet of the forest. I'm close now, close enough to hear the distinct cadence of dark elf commands being given and followed. I collapse again, this time against a fallen log. My breath comes in shallow gasps, and my heart feels like it's trying to beat its way out of my chest. I'm so tired. The darkness at the edge of my vision creeps closer, threatening to pull me under. No, I murmur, shaking my head in a feeble attempt to clear it. Not yet. I press my hand against my wound, the cloth now soaked through with my blood. I need to keep moving. I need to find help. But my body betrays me, refusing to cooperate, the pain too much to overcome. The ground seems to shift beneath me, and I realise with a jolt of fear that I'm no longer in control. My eyelids flutter closed, and despite my best efforts, I can't open them. The sounds of the celebration are a distant roar now, like the pounding of the surf against a shore I'll never reach. Please, I whisper, though I know not to whom I'm speaking. Someone, help me. And then, silence. My last thought is a vague hope that whoever, or whatever, is causing the uneasiness at the celebration might also be my salvation. From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
or clawing up from the realms of fantasy,
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
These monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love.
Vampires.
Demons.
Dark Elves.
Gods.
Minotaurs. Creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world, to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks.
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks.
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
Even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka fantasy romance bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this romantasy bundle will make it endless.
Chapter 6. Valen. The shadows embrace me as I move through the chaos of the Dark Elf celebration. My footsteps are silent against the damp forest floor. Screams pierce the night, both of revelry and terror. The Dark Elves' laughter mingles with the desperate cries of their prey a short distance away. It's a reminder of the night my world turned to ash and blood. The night the Dark Elves took everything from me. My hand tightens around the hilt of my sword, the blade thirsting for vengeance. Please, we have a child. A man's voice breaks through the darkness, followed by the wet sound of steel meeting flesh. My keen eyes observe the man and woman's heads tumbling to the ground several yards ahead of me. My fingers flex against the hilt of my sword once more. Not yet. The timing must be perfect. Suddenly, a woman sprints past me, her eyes wide with desperation. Rhea, Marie's voice is cut short, replaced by a gurgled scream. I turn just in time to see a dark elf guard plunge his sword through her chest. Her body crumples to the ground, her eyes frozen in shock. I follow the trajectory of Mari's last gaze and spot the cause of her desperate run. Just beyond the tree line, a young woman lies wounded, her hazel and gold eyes reflecting the stark terror of the hunted. Her breaths come in shallow, ragged gasps, and a makeshift bandage on her leg is soaked through with blood. My heart, long since stilled by centuries of solitude, beats once more, a war drum echoing the rhythm of her struggle. I see more than just a marked tribute. I see the echoes of my past, the shadows of my sister's pain etched into her every labored breath. The dark elf guard who dispatched Mari with such cruel indifference now saunters toward Rhea, a sickening grin spread across his face. A fighter, are we? he taunts, nudging her with his boot. "This will be entertaining!" Every instinct within me screams for retribution. I've honed my skills in the arts of death and shadows for centuries, waiting for moments like this. Moments when I can strike a blow against the Dark Elves' tyranny, but this is different. This is personal. As the guard raises his sword, ready to deliver the killing blow, I step from the shadows, my every movement a silent promise of death. "Leave her," I command, my voice a low growl that carries the weight of my centuries-long vendetta. The Dark Elf turns, surprise registering on his face as he takes in my imposing form. "And who might you be?" he asks, trying to mask his fear with bravado. I don't bother with an introduction. Instead, I advance toward him, my every step radiating the promise of violence. "Your death," I reply, drawing my sword with a sound that makes his eyes widen. He lunges at me, his sword swinging in a wide arc. I sidestep his attack easily, my own blade finding its mark. The Dark Elf's scream is a symphony to my ears, a testament to my deadly precision. His severed hand hits the ground with a sickening thud, and I revel in the moment of his realization, the knowledge that his life is forfeit. My sword sings through the air, and with one swift stroke, I separate his head from his shoulders. His body crumples, and I step over it without a second glance. My focus narrows once more to the woman lying there wounded. Rhea, they call her. Her scent, a mix of fear, resolve, and something uniquely her, cuts through the metallic tang of blood in the air. I scoop her into my arms, her body now limp and compliant. Her head lolls against my chest, and I can feel the shallow rise and fall of her breathing. "Hold on," I whisper, the command more of a growl. Her hazel eyes flutter open for a brief moment, and I see recognition there, a flicker of trust that ignites something long dormant within me. I plunge into the shadows, my speed and strength a product of my Rockin heritage. The darkness cloaks us, a familiar mantle that shields me from prying eyes. Behind us, the forest erupts in chaos as the Dark Elves discover their fallen comrade. Their shouts are a distant echo, irrelevant to the singular task at hand. Rhea's breath hitches in her throat, a soft, pained sound that would be inaudible to human ears. I pull her closer, my arms a protective barrier against the world that has shown her nothing but cruelty. Her head falls back, and her body goes slack as unconsciousness claims her. The woods are alive with the sounds of pursuit, but I navigate the terrain with ease, my every step calculated and precise. I've spent centuries honing my skills, perfecting the art of guerrilla warfare. The Dark Elves are powerful, but they are not invincible, a lesson I've been all too eager to teach them. I hear the crunch of leaves underfoot and the low murmur of voices drawing closer. The Dark Elves are on our trail. Their pride is wounded by the audacity of my interference. I tighten my grip on Rhea, my determination a steely presence in my chest. They will not have her, not while I still draw breath. I weave through the ancient pines, my Vracken's speed turning the forest into a blur of shadows. The unconscious woman in my arms weighs nothing to my supernatural strength. Her pulse thrums against my chest, weak but steady. "Find them!" A Dark Elf commander's voice echoes through the trees. "The tribute cannot escape!" I shift direction, cutting east through a stream to mask our scent. The icy water splashes around my boots. Behind us, the sounds of pursuit grow fainter. "Lord Calith will have our heads if we lose them." Another voice carries on the wind. A smirk tugs at my lips. "Let them chase shadows. I've spent centuries perfecting the art of disappearing. The forest is my domain now, not theirs." I leap over a fallen oak tree, landing without a sound. I look down at Rhea and notice that the wound on her leg has stopped bleeding, but I worry that infection could set in if not treated soon. "Almost there," I murmur more to myself than her. The pursuing Dark Elves' voices fade to nothing as I take a circuitous route back to my lair. Their arrogance makes them predictable. They'll search the obvious paths, never considering that their prey might double back. I pause briefly at the base of a cliff face, listening. Nothing but the whisper of wind through dead leaves and the distant cry of a night bird. They've lost our trail completely. Perfect. The entrance to my sanctuary lies just ahead behind a curtain of vines, invisible unless you know exactly where to look. As I approach the mouth of the cavern, I glance down at the woman in my arms again. Her chestnut hair is matted with sweat and dirt, her breathing ragged but steady. I step into the sanctuary of my hideout, the cool, still air a stark contrast to the bedlam we've left behind. I lay Rhea down on a makeshift bed of moss and furs. Her wound is severe, a deep gash that bisects her calf muscle. I retrieve a flask of Reichen blood, a potent elixir with miraculous healing properties. I pour a generous amount over her injury, watching as the skin knits itself back together. The angry red flesh slowly fades to a soft, healthy pink. As I work on gently bandaging her healing wound, I can't help but study her face. The delicate arch of her eyebrows, the stubborn set of her jaw, the way her lips part slightly as she breathes. I soon sit back and wait for her to wake up. I watch her chest rise and fall with each breath, the rhythm steady now that the healing has taken effect. The firelight plays across her features, casting shadows that dance across her pale skin. She's different from the other humans I've encountered. There's a fire in her that reminds me of myself. "You're safe now," I murmur, more to myself than to her sleeping form. My fingers flex instinctively, wanting to brush a strand of hair from her face, but I hold back. The scent of her blood still lingers in the air, stirring something primal within me. But it's not hunger I feel. It's an inexplicable need to protect, to shield her from the darkness that's consumed my own existence for centuries. Her brow furrows in her sleep, and she lets out a small whimper. Without thinking, I move closer, my presence seeming to calm her. The connection is unsettling. I haven't felt drawn to protect anyone since my sisters. "Rest," I command softly, my voice rougher than intended. "You'll need your strength."
Chapter 7. Rhea. I wake to a warmth that's foreign, yet not unwelcome. It's a stark contrast to the chill of the forest floor that I expected to claim me. It appears that I'm in some kind of hideout cavern. I'm lying on a bed of moss and furs that smell of earth and the metallic tang of blood. My body aches, but the wound on my leg has been tended to, the bandages snug against my skin. Confusion fogs my mind as I try to sit up, a hiss escaping through my clenched teeth. The world spins, and I sink back onto the makeshift bed, my heart pounding out a frantic rhythm. That's when I see him. His crimson eyes seem to pierce the gloom of the cave. He stands at the edge of my vision, a dark silhouette against the dimly lit interior. "You're awake," he says, his voice a deep rumble that echoes off the cavern walls. My instinct is to recoil, to put as much distance between myself and this creature of darkness. But there's something in his gaze, a flicker of something I can't quite place. It's not the cold, cruel glint I've come to expect from the Dark Elves. It's different. There's a depth there, a well of understanding that I hadn't anticipated. I try to speak, but my throat is parched, the words dying before they can reach my lips. He steps closer, and I catch the scent of leather and steel, mingling with the faintest hint of pine. He crouches beside me, his movements fluid and silent. "Here," he says, offering a water skin. I eye it warily, my hand trembling as I reach out to take it. Our fingers brush, and a jolt of surprise courses through me at the warmth of his touch. There's a pulse of life within him that I hadn't expected. I lift the water skin to my lips, the cool water a balm to my dry mouth. I drink deeply, the liquid coursing down my throat and spreading warmth throughout my body. My voice is a mere croak when I finally find the strength to speak. "Who are you?" I ask. He pauses, his crimson eyes holding mine. "I'm a Vraken," he says, the title hanging in the air between us, a shroud of mystery that does little to quell the turmoil within me. He soon recounts the events of the hunt, his words painting a vivid, terrifying picture. I was a breath away from death's door, he explains. My consciousness slipped like sand through fingers as the Dark Elves closed in on me. He tells me of the cruelty he witnessed, the senseless violence that claimed Mary's life, her final moments marked by a desperate attempt to save me that was so cruelly snatched away. My heart, already a fragile thing, threatens to shatter as he begins to speak of my parents. He describes their final moments with a detached precision that somehow makes it more real, more painful. They pleaded for their lives for the sake of their child. And then, silence. I suddenly can't breathe. The air in the cavern feels too thick, too heavy. My parents, gone. Mary, gone. The life I knew, the future I dared to dream of with them, gone. All that's left is a gaping maw of loss that threatens to consume me entirely. His voice softens slightly, the first hint of gentleness I've heard from him. They seem to worry more about you than themselves, Rhea, he says. The sound of my name on his lips is jarring. It's a reminder that I'm not just a survivor of the hunt. I'm a daughter, a friend, a human being who has been forever changed by the cruel whims of the Dark Elves. I don't know how to process the grief that's threatening to drown me. So, I do what I've always done when faced with overwhelming pain. I push it down, lock it away in the deepest recesses of my heart. There will be time for mourning later, when I'm not lying in the dark with a creature I barely know. He seems to understand my need for silence, for space to grapple with the news of my loss. He retreats to the edge of the cavern. The silence stretches on, a comfortable companion that allows me to sift through the chaos of my emotions. I watch him, the way he moves with a predator's grace, the way his eyes seem to see right through the darkness. There's a sense of coiled power about him, a quiet strength that's both intimidating and strangely comforting. I find my voice again, the words barely above a whisper. "Why did you save me?" I ask. He turns to face me, his expression unreadable. "I saw something in you, a fire that refused to be extinguished, even in the face of death. It reminded me of those I once knew," he says in a low voice. Those he once knew. The unspoken words hang between us, a shared understanding of loss and survival. In this moment, we're not so different, despite the vast chasm of experience and power that lies between us. I let out a shaky breath, the weight of my new reality settling heavily on my shoulders. I'm alive, but at what cost? My family, my friend, they paid the ultimate price for my survival. And now, I'm left to navigate a world that's been irrevocably altered. A fire soon kindles within me, a blaze fueled by my loss, and a seething need for retribution. I feel it crackling in my veins. It's a heat that scorches away the numbness of my grief. My hands curl into fists at my sides. I want to fight. I want to kill the Dark Elves, I say, the words tasting of ashes and iron resolve. My voice, usually soft-spoken, now carries an edge. His eyes narrow slightly. There's a silence that stretches between us, taut as a bowstring. "If you fight to win," he finally says, his voice a deep rumble that resonates in the hollow of my chest. "I can teach you, but you must be willing to let go of everything else." Everything else. The life I knew, the dreams I cherished, the people I loved, all turned to dust by the Dark Elves' cruelty. There's nothing left for me to hold on to but this burning desire for vengeance. I hesitate, the heaviness of my decision pressing down on me. But as I meet his gaze, I see a reflection of my own fervour mirrored back at me. He understands this path I'm choosing, for it's one he's walked himself. "I'm ready," I say, the words a vow that seals my fate. He gives a curt nod, the ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "Very well. I am Valen," he introduces himself formally. He soon begins to speak more about his past, of the family and clan he lost centuries ago. I listen with rapt attention. His story is filled with sorrow and vengeance. There's a depth to his loss that I'm only beginning to comprehend, a chasm of time and suffering that I can't fully grasp. Valen's crimson eyes are distant, focused on a time I cannot see, but the flicker of a flame reflected within them draws me closer, not in proximity, but in understanding. It's the same flame that burns within me, the fire of revenge, of a desire for justice that transcends time and space. I soon find myself opening up to him in return, my own tale spilling forth, the words tasting of bitterness and longing. I tell him of the unyielding stone walls that have been my world for as long as I can remember, the harsh sting of the Dark Elves' derision, and the tiny sliver of sky I cherished as my only glimpse of freedom. I confess my fear and despair during the hunt, the hopelessness that clawed at me as I lay on the forest floor, resigned to my fate. "And now look at you," he says, his gaze intense, as if trying to decipher the thoughts racing behind my eyes. "You are not the same woman who was dragged into that forest." His words stir something within me, a truth that's been struggling to emerge from the shadow of my former self. "No, I'm not," I admit. Somehow, in this dimly lit cavern, we find common ground. Our enemies are the same, our goal a shared vision of retribution. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the journey ahead. My grief is still there, but it's overshadowed by the fierce determination that now fuels my every breath. Together, we will make the Dark Elves pay for their sins. Together, we will rewrite the story of our lives, not as victims, but as victors. The path ahead is fraught with danger, but we will face it head-on, with steel in our hands and fire in our hearts.
Chapter 8. Valen. I watch Rhea's muscles strain as she lifts the practice sword for what must be the 100th time today. Sweat trickles down her temple, her dark hair plastered to her neck. The morning sun filters through the canopy above our clearing and casts dappled shadows across her determined face. "Your stance is too wide," I say, circling her. "You're compensating for weakness by trying to ground yourself. It makes you slow, predictable." She adjusts, bringing her feet closer together. The sword wavers in her grip. "Like this?" she asks. "Better," I mutter. I tap her elbow with 2 fingers. "Keep this tucked in. Control comes from your core, not your arms." She swings again, the blade cutting through empty air with a whisper. Her movements are still unsteady, unpolished, but there's something in the way she throws herself into each strike that reminds me of myself centuries ago. That same desperate need to prove something. "Again," I command, keeping my voice steady despite the memories threatening to surface. "This time imagine the blade is an extension of your arm." "It feels more like an extension of my exhaustion," she mutters, but raises the sword again. "Pain is temporary." "The skills I'm teaching you will keep you alive," I insist. Her hazel eyes flash with that familiar fire as she executes another series of strikes. Better this time. Her movements more fluid, though still lacking precision. The rage inside her burns bright raw and untamed, like looking into a mirror of my past. Over the next several days, the forest becomes alive with the sounds of our relentless training. Rhea's movements are more fluid, her body healing fully under my care. Every strike, every parry is a testament to her resilience. I watch her now with the dagger I've given her glinting in the dappled sunlight. "Again," I command, my voice cutting through the stillness of the early dawn. "This time, don't think. Just act." She lunges, the dagger slicing through the air with lethal precision. I can see the change in her, the way her hazel eyes have hardened. I step forward, my larger frame easily deflecting her attack. "Good," I say, a rare praise that brings a flush of pride to her cheeks. "But you're still hesitating. The enemy won't wait for you to make up your mind. Her eyes meet mine, a spark of determination igniting within their depths. Then show me, Valen. Show me how to be a ruthless warrior, she insists. The venom in her voice is palpable, and I can't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. I've been alone for so long, driven by vengeance and little else, but Rhea, she's giving me something more to fight for, a shared purpose. Very well, I say, stepping back to give her room. Attack me as if I were one of them, no holding back. She launches herself at me. We move in a deadly ballet, metal clashing against metal, our bodies a blur of motion. I could overpower her easily, but I hold back, allowing her to test her skills against me. Suddenly, she feints to the left, then pivots, aiming the dagger at my side. I barely manage to deflect the blow, her newfound speed and agility catching me off guard. The girl has learned quickly, her natural instincts honed by the harsh lessons of her past. Good, I reply, nodding approvingly. Now let's see how you handle yourself when the odds are stacked against you. A gesture to the shadows of the forest, where several of my own training dummies lie in wait. There are your enemies. Show me what you've learned, I rumble. Without a moment's hesitation, Rhea sprints toward the targets, her dagger gleaming wickedly in the morning light. I watch her, pride swelling within me. As she strikes, her movements are a blur, each target falling before her relentless assault. The dagger, imbued with ancient magic, slices through the practice dummies as if they were made of air. I can see the concentration etched on her face, the single-minded focus that I've instilled in her. When the last dummy falls, she turns to me, her chest heaving with exertion, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. Did I pass? She asks. I stride towards her. With flying colors, I confirm, my hand reaching out to clasp her shoulder in a rare display of camaraderie. Her hand covers mine, a silent acknowledgement of the bond we forged in the fires of adversity. Her gaze holds mine with an intensity that steals the breath from my lungs. Weeks pass quickly, and Rhea has become proficient enough at fighting, so I decide it's time to test her skills in an actual battle. We scout out a group of Dark Elves on the outskirts of a nearby village. Our first real raid is finally upon us. The following morning, we initiate a sneak attack on the Dark Elves' camp. The forest becomes alive with the sounds of battle. I move with lethal precision, my every sense attuned to the chaos unfolding around us. Rhea is a blur of motion at my side. Her dagger flashes in the sunlight as she strikes with the speed and grace of a hunting falcon. Stay close, I command, my voice a low growl that cuts through the din of clashing steel. She nods, her hazel eyes reflecting the fierce determination that has become her signature. I've got this, she assures me. I watch as she darts toward a dark elf, her movements fluid and silent. She strikes true, her dagger slashing across the elf's thigh, dropping him to the ground with a strangled cry. But another elf, larger and more menacing, rounds on her with a snarl of fury. I'm moving before I can think, my sword singing as it cleaves the air. The elf doesn't stand a chance. My blade finds its mark, the impact reverberating up my arm as he falls. I spin around, ready to defend Rhea from any further threats, but she's already on her feet, her eyes wide with gratitude. She falls into step beside me, her breath coming in quick, ragged gasps. I thought I could handle this, she admits, the tremor in her voice betraying her bravado. But it's so much harder than I thought it would be. I glance at her, noting the way her hands shake ever so slightly. You're doing fine, I assure her. This is your first real battle. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. Before she can respond, a sharp cry splits the air. I turn just in time to see another dark elf barreling toward us, his sword raised high. I push Rhea out of the way, my body taking the brunt of the impact as I collide with our attacker. We go down hard, the ground shaking beneath us as we grapple for control. My vision blurs with the effort, my muscles straining under the weight of my opponent. I can feel the cold kiss of steel as his blade nicks my side, a searing reminder that I'm not invincible. Rhea's scream pierces the fog of battle, her fear for my safety spurring me into action. With a roar, I summon all my strength and twist the elf's wrist, forcing him to drop his sword. A swift elbow to the face sends him sprawling, unconscious before he hits the ground. I stagger to my feet, my side throbbing with pain. Rhea rushes to my side, her hands fluttering over the wound as she assesses the damage. "You're hurt," she says, her voice laced with worry. "I'll be fine," I grunt, waving away her concern. "It's just a scratch." She doesn't look convinced, but she doesn't argue either. "You saved my life," she murmurs, her gaze locked with mine. I shrug, a nonchalant gesture that belies the turmoil churning inside me. "It's what I do," I say, my voice gruff. But the truth is, I would lay down my life for her without a second thought, and that realization shakes me to my core. As we continue our further assault on the Dark Elves, I can't help but notice the protective instincts that surge to the forefront whenever Rhea is in danger. She's more than just a weapon in my quest for vengeance. She's becoming a part of me, her fire and passion breathing life into the cold, desolate wasteland that was once my heart. The battle rages on, but my thoughts are consumed by the woman fighting at my side. I tell myself it's because she's a valuable asset, a crucial part of my plan for revenge. But deep down, I know it's more than that. She's not just my tool for revenge, she's important to me, more important than I care to admit. As the last of the Dark Elves retreat, I glance over at Rhea, her face streaked with sweat and blood. She meets my gaze, a fierce smile curving her lips. "We did it," she says, her voice filled with triumph and relief.
Chapter 9. Rhea. The moon hangs heavy in the sky, a silver sentinel watching over the darkened forest. My heart thrums in my chest. It's a relentless drumbeat echoing the tension coiling in my muscles. Valen is a silent shadow beside me. His presence is a comforting weight in the otherwise oppressive silence. We crouch behind a thicket of trees. Our eyes fixate closely on the winding path that cuts through the woods like an open vein. A caravan of Dark Elves soon approaches, their armour gleaming under the moon's glow. They're arrogant, these nobles, parading through the night as if they own the very air we breathe. In a way, they do, but not for long. Valen's gaze flicks to me, his crimson eyes the only hint of colour in the monochrome night. He nods, a silent signal that sets my blood alight with anticipation. I tighten my grip on the dagger he gave me, a slender blade that feels like an extension of my will. "Remember," Valen whispers, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "Strike fast. Strike true." I nod. I've trained for this moment, honed my body and mind into weapons of retribution. The caravan draws closer, the clinking of armour and the soft whinny of horses filling the air. Valen's hand finds mine, squeezing it in a silent show of support. It's a small gesture, but it grounds me, reminds me why we're here. "On my mark," he murmurs, his eyes never leaving the approaching enemy. I swallow hard, my free hand itching to wipe the sweat from my palms. But I don't dare move, don't dare break the spell of stillness that cloaks us. The Dark Elves are within striking distance now, their laughter carrying on the wind, a chilling sound that reminds me of all the pain they've inflicted. Valen's hand releases mine, and he moves with a predator's grace, melting into the shadows. I follow suit, my body reacting on instinct, my training taking over. We flank the caravan, unseen spectres ready to strike. "Now!" Valen breathes. My heartbeat quickens. But Valen's presence is a reassuring constant at my side. We strike, and the world erupts into chaos. My dagger finds its mark, the blade biting into the Dark Elf's throat with a sickening ease. His eyes, wide with disbelief, lock onto mine. It's a moment suspended in eternity, a snapshot of shock and suffering that sears itself into my memory. He crumples to the ground, and I'm left standing amidst the carnage. My breath hitches in my throat. The taste of bile fills my mouth, hot and acrid. I've dreamt of this moment, imagined the sweet release of revenge, but the reality is a bitter pill to swallow. The Dark Elf's blood, dark as ink, spreads across the forest floor. My hands tremble. Vaelon materializes at my side, his touch on my shoulder a grounding force amidst the storm of my emotions. "It gets easier," he murmurs, his voice a low rumble that barely penetrates the fog of my shock. "They're the enemy, Rhea. They took your family, your life. This is the price they pay." I nod mechanically, my gaze still riveted to the lifeless eyes staring back at me. Valen's words should bring comfort, a validation of my actions, but all I feel is a gaping void where my triumph should be. The significance of what I've done settles on my shoulders, a heavy mantle of guilt and regret. Soon the sounds of battle gradually fade as Vaelon moves with deadly precision, cutting down any who dare to resist. It's a brutal display of power. When Valen's killed the last Dark Elf, he comes and crouches beside me, his crimson eyes scanning my face with unsettling intensity. "Rhea," he prompts, his voice now laced with concern. "Talk to me. How do you feel?" I force myself to meet Valen's gaze. I don't know," I confess, my voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I'd feel different, triumphant maybe." He nods knowingly. "Revenge is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. What you're feeling, it's normal. You've crossed a line, one that can't be uncrossed." A shiver runs down my spine as the reality of his words sinks in. I've taken a life, extinguished the spark that made a living, breathing being. The enormity of the act is suffocating, a burden I hadn't anticipated. My heart pounds like a drum in my chest, a rhythm that feels both alien and oddly right. I feel sick, a nauseating cocktail of horror and an intoxicating sense of power. For the first time in my life, I've taken control, dealt out the kind of justice that only comes with a sharpened blade and a resolve of steel. "Rhea!" Valen's voice cuts through my spiralling thoughts. He stands up before me, his crimson eyes scanning the surrounding carnage. There's an unsettling calmness about him, but I've learned to read the subtleties of his expressions, the way his jaw clenches just a fraction when he's wrestling with his own demons. "We need to move. There will be others coming for us." I nod, though my feet seem rooted to the blood-soaked earth. Valen's hand closes around my arm, a gentle yet insistent tug that urges me into motion. I stumble after him, my legs regaining their strength with each step I take away from the grisly scene behind us. We move in silence, navigating the labyrinthine forest with a shared sense of urgency. The moon bathes our path in a silver glow. After what feels like an eternity, we arrive at a small cave nestled amidst a thicket of thorny brambles. It's a makeshift hideout, one of many Vaelon has shown me over the past weeks. Inside, the air is cool and damp, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat of my own racing thoughts. Valen settles against the cave wall, his gaze focused on the cave's entrance. His body is relaxed, but there's a coiled tension in him, a readiness that suggests he's prepared to spring into action at a moment's notice. I lower myself to the ground across from him, my hands trembling slightly as I tuck them under my legs. "Rhea." Valen's voice is soft now, a stark departure from the lethal warrior who had sliced through the Dark Elves with terrifying precision. "You did well tonight. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you saved lives." I lift my eyes to meet his, searching for some semblance of the satisfaction he speaks of, but all I find is a hollow emptiness that mirrors the void gnawing away at my insides. "I killed someone, Vaelon," I whisper, the words tasting like ash on my tongue. "How am I supposed to feel good about that?" He leans forward, his elbows resting on his knees as he studies me intently. You feel exactly as you should, he replies, his voice a low rumble that resonates within the confines of our hideout. You're not a monster, Rhea. You're a survivor. You fought back against those who have taken everything from you. There's no shame in that. I take a deep, shuddering breath, trying to wrap my mind around his words. But how do you do it? I ask, my voice barely more than a murmur. How do you live with the lives you've taken? Valen's gaze drops to the ground, his fingers tracing the outline of a scar that mars his otherwise flawless skin. I carry them with me, he admits, his voice heavy with centuries of sorrow and regret. Each life is a weight on my soul, a reminder of what I've lost and what I've become. But it's also a testament to my resolve, to the promise I made to avenge my family. His eyes meet mine once more, and there's a strange kind of warmth in them, a warmth that both comforts and unnerves me. You're not alone in this, Rhea. We're both haunted by our pasts, by the pain and the loss. But we're in this together, and together we'll make them pay. His words, though simple, carry a profound truth that strikes a chord within me. I realise then that I'm not just a former slave, a mere pawn in the Dark Elves' twisted games. I'm a warrior, just like Valen. And while the path to vengeance is fraught with darkness and despair, I know that I no longer walk it alone. Our bond, forged in the fires of shared suffering and a burning desire for justice, has become my anchor in the storm. Thank you, Vaelon, I say, my voice steadier now, imbued with a newfound determination. For everything. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. He offers me a small, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement of the connection that binds us. We sit there in comfortable silence, the bond between us deepening with every passing moment. And though the future remains uncertain, I find solace in the knowledge that for now, I am safe with Vaelon by my side. There isn't much left of the world after the orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me.
Chapter 10. Valen. The fire crackles softly in the darkness. Its flickering light casts dancing shadows on the walls of our small cave. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the faintest trace of blood, a grim reminder of our night's work. I sit across from Rhea, her figure bathed in an orange glow. Her hazel eyes reflect the flames as she stares into them, lost in thought. I watch her, my own thoughts a tumultuous sea. She's strong. I've seen it in the way she wields a blade, in the fierce determination that burns within her. Yet, she's also fragile, vulnerable in a way that stirs something within me, a protective instinct I haven't felt in centuries. Her hands, still stained with the blood of our enemies, rest limply in her lap. I can see the conflict raging inside her, the struggle to reconcile her actions with her sense of self. I move closer and sit beside her. The stone beneath us is cold, but I scarcely notice. You fought well tonight, I say softly. I take her hands in mine, the blood smearing on my skin as I begin to clean them with a cloth. Rhea's gaze flickers to me, her expression hard to read. I don't feel great about it no matter how hard I try, she confesses, her voice laced with a mix of guilt and uncertainty. I hesitate, then reach out, brushing a stray lock of dark hair from her face. My touch lingers for a moment, and I allow myself to feel the warmth of her skin against mine. "You survived," I tell her, holding her gaze. "That's all that matters." The air between us shifts, charged with an intensity that has nothing to do with the battle we've left behind. Her eyes meet mine again, and for a brief moment, the walls I've built around my heart begin to crumble. I tell myself that this, whatever this is, must not interfere with our mission. Yet, I can't ignore the connection that's forming between us, nor the way it makes me feel. For years, I've been a solitary figure, driven by hatred and a thirst for vengeance. But now, Ria's presence has begun to change something within me. She's become more than just a protege. She's become a part of my life, a beacon of hope in a world that I've long since written off as irredeemable. "Valen," she says, her voice breaking the silence. "Why do you keep helping me?" I pause, considering her question. It's one I've asked myself many times. I could lie to her, spin a tale about how she's a means to an end, another weapon in my arsenal against the Dark Elves. But as I sit here with the warmth of her body seeping into mine, I find that I can't bring myself to deceive her. Not about this. "The truth?" I say. "I see myself in you, Ria. A shadow of the person I once was, before loss and rage consumed me. You're a reminder that there's still something worth fighting for beyond my own selfish desires." Her breath hitches slightly, and she turns those piercing eyes to meet mine. There's a vulnerability there that she rarely shows. "Vaelon," she whispers, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and longing. I lean in, ignoring the voice in my head that screams for caution. My heart races, a sensation I haven't felt in centuries. Time seems to slow as I close the distance between us, giving her ample opportunity to pull away. But she doesn't. Instead, she meets me halfway, her lips brushing against mine with a tentative hunger that mirrors my own. The kiss deepens, fueled by the raw emotions we've both been suppressing. Her hands find their way to my chest, her fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt, pulling me closer. I wrap my arms around her, drawing her into my lap as I explore the contours of her mouth with a newfound urgency. She tastes of fire and sweetness, a heady combination that ignites a primal urge within me. I am Alpha, a Vrakan lord, yet in this moment, I am also vulnerable and raw. Her presence has chipped away at me, allowing me to feel something other than hatred and the relentless drive for revenge. I break the kiss, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. "Ria," I murmur, my forehead resting against hers. "This changes nothing. The path we've chosen, it's fraught with danger." She pulls back slightly, her eyes searching mine. "I know," she says, her voice steady despite the emotions that dance in her eyes. "But if we're to face death together, then let us also share this, a moment of peace amidst the chaos." Her words resonate within me, a poignant reminder that our lives are not solely defined by our quest for vengeance. There's a tenderness to our connection, a fragile bond that has the potential to either strengthen or shatter us. Ria's breath hitches as my fingers trace the line of her jaw, her skin soft beneath my touch. The fire's glow casts a warm light on her face. I can see the rapid pulse in her neck, a telltale sign of her arousal. "Valen," she whispers, her voice barely audible over the crackling of the fire. Her eyes search mine, questions lingering on the tip of her tongue. I silence her with a kiss again, my hand sliding to the nape of her neck, tangling in her dark hair. My grip is firm, possessive as I pull her down onto the makeshift bed of furs and blankets. The scent of her, earth, and a hint of sweat from our recent skirmish fills my senses, stoking the primal urgency that courses through my veins. She gasps as I break the kiss, my lips trailing along her jawline and down the slender column of her throat. My touch is gentle, yet there's an undercurrent of dominance that I can't and won't suppress. I want to take your mind off of everything, I murmur against her skin, my breath sending a shiver through her body. Let me give you this, Rhea. Let me give you this moment of peace. Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for this platform.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by this platform's guidelines.
To get the full, unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the Worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 11. Valen. The forest is alive with whispers and the rustle of leaves, a symphony of sounds that should be soothing, yet they grate on my nerves. I watch from the shadows as Rhea moves with lethal grace, her body a mere wraith in the darkness. She's a quick study, her movements sharp and precise as she takes down a dark elf sentry from his perch atop a tree. The body drops silently, caught by her waiting arms. Pride swells within me, but it's quickly overshadowed by a gnawing sense of dread. I've fought countless battles, seen the horrors of war, and tasted the bittersweet victory that comes at too high a cost. But this is different. The stakes have never been more personal. It's not just my life on the line anymore, it's hers too. And with that realization comes a rush of emotion I'm not accustomed to. Fear. Fear for her safety. The Dark Elves have begun to retaliate. Their patrols are more frequent, and their forces are more organized. The nobles are sending out hunters specifically to find us, and each day the noose tightens. I can feel the change in the air, a storm brewing on the horizon. I step out from the underbrush, my boots silent on the forest floor. Rhea turns at the sound, her hazel eyes meeting mine. There's a defiance in her gaze, a refusal to bow to the darkness that seeks to consume us both. You're getting so much better, I say, my voice a low rumble in the stillness. She shrugs, a smirk playing on her lips. I had a good teacher, she quips. I can't help but return her smile, but it fades quickly. The Dark Elves are adapting. We need to be more careful, I insist. Rhea's expression hardens, her grip tightening on the hilt of her dagger. I won't cower in the shadows, Valen. Not when we have a chance to strike back, she replies. Her determination is admirable, but it's also a potential weakness. I step closer, my hand reaching out to brush a stray lock of hair from her face. Striking back is one thing, Rhea. Martyrdom is another. We can't afford reckless heroics, I implore. She pulls away, her eyes flashing with a hint of defiance. Is that what you think I'm doing? Being reckless? She asks. I think you're strong. Perhaps the strongest human I've ever known, I reply, my tone steady. I tighten my grip on my sword, the cool metal a reassuring presence against my palm. Every shadow feels like a threat now, every rustle of leaves a sign that we're being watched. The Dark Elves are getting bolder, their hunters more cunning. But it's not just them I'm wary of. It's the growing turmoil within me. I turn to Rhea, her form barely discernible in the dim light filtering through the canopy. Everything seems to stop for a beat whenever I look at her. The memory of our night together is a flame that refuses to be extinguished. Its warmth a stark contrast to the cool detachment I've wrapped myself in for centuries. Watching her fight lately, her body moving with a lethal elegance, it does something to me. It stirs a primal need, a desire to claim her, to protect her, to make her mine in every sense of the word. I step closer, my voice a low growl meant only for her ears. You're pushing yourself too hard, I observe, my gaze lingering on the exhaustion etched into her features. She turns to me, her hazel eyes bright with a burning fire. I have to be ready for anything, she replies, her voice steady. Her eyes lock onto mine, and for a moment, the world falls away. There's an unspoken tension between us, a connection forged in battle and solidified in the heat of our shared passion. We really haven't addressed the intimacy we shared the other night, and what that might mean for us. It's a distraction we don't need right now, yet I find myself craving the taste of her, the feel of her skin against mine again. I clench my fists, forcing myself to focus on the task at hand. We need to move now, I say, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. The Dark Elves are stepping up their search in this area. They could arrive at any minute. Rhea nods, her hazel eyes reflecting the determination that has become her shield. I'm ready to move, she replies, her voice a soft murmur that sends a jolt straight to my core. I turn away quickly, leading her through the dense underbrush toward our hidden temporary sanctuary. The journey is silent, save for the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. I can sense her watching me, her gaze a tangible weight on my back. I know she's struggling with her own demons, the ghosts of her past fueling her desire for vengeance. But I also know that her path has become entangled with mine, and the thought of her facing the same fate as my clan is unbearable to me. We soon arrive at the hideout, a cave hidden behind a waterfall, its entrance concealed by magic and the natural curvature of the rock. Inside, the air is cool and damp. Rhea moves to the center of the cavern, her eyes scanning the weapons and maps spread out on a makeshift table. I approach her, my steps measured and deliberate. We've made good progress, but we can't afford to become complacent now, I say, my gaze locked on hers. The Dark Elves are more cunning than you truly realize. She crosses her arms, a defensive posture that does nothing to diminish her strength. I know the risks, Valen, she retorts, her voice laced with an edge of frustration. But I won't hide in the shadows forever while they continue to oppress and murder innocent people. I close the distance between us, my height forcing her to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I would never ask you to cower, Rhea, I say, my voice a low growl. But we must be more strategic. Our enemy is powerful, and they will not hesitate to exploit any weakness. Her eyes flare with defiance, but there's a hint of vulnerability there as well. And what about us, Valen? She asks. Are we a weakness? I reach out, my fingers brushing against the soft skin of her cheek. We are survivors, I reply, my tone resolute. And together we are stronger than any force they can throw at us. For a moment, the tension between us crackles like lightning, threatening to ignite the powder keg of our restrained desires. The flickering firelight catches the gold flecks in her hazel eyes, and something primal stirs within me. I move closer, and her scent hits me. My body tenses with need, centuries of control, of keeping my desires in check, and now this slip of a human threatens to undo me completely. She turns, and we're suddenly too close. Her breath catches, and I see her pulse quicken at her throat. You should rest, I growl, my voice rougher than intended. But I don't step back. Can't step back. I'm not tired, she insists. Her chin lifts in that defiant way that makes me want to claim her mouth with mine. The beast inside me, the part that's pure Vraken, demands I take what I want right now, make her mine, mark her. But the rational part of me knows better. Caring for her is already a liability I can't afford. Wanting her like this is dangerous, for both of us. Rhea. Her name comes out like a warning, but she doesn't back down. Never backs down. It's what I admire about her, what drives me crazy. Suddenly, I remember the taste of her lips, the sound of her pleasure. My control slips another notch. But I pull away, knowing that succumbing to our passions could cloud our judgment at a time when we need to be more vigilant than ever. Without thinking, I blurt out loudly, "We must train more." My voice echoes off the cave walls. Rhea nods firmly, her expression one of grim determination. "Then let's get to work," she says, her voice steady and filled with resolve. But I can't help but feel that gnawing fear again, the fear that I may not be able to protect her from the darkness that looms on the horizon. I push the thought aside. Yet as we prepare ourselves for our rigorous training ahead, I can't deny the truth that lingers in the back of my mind. Rhea is no longer just a tool for my personal revenge. She's become something more, something precious that I never expected to find amidst the bloodshed and sorrow. And as we prepare to face our enemies together, I realize that my heart is no longer mine alone. It beats for her, for the fire in her eyes and the strength of her will.
Chapter 12. Rhea. The forest is a relentless teacher. Its lessons are written in the language of sweat and blood. Valen pushes me harder each day. His gaze never wavers as I stumble, fall, and rise again. The training is grueling, a testament to his unyielding determination to forge me into a weapon of mass destruction. This morning, the sun barely crests the horizon when he hands me my dagger, its blade gleaming wickedly in the pale light. "Again," he commands, his voice a low rumble that resonates in the pit of my stomach. I lunge, my movements a blur as I attack the makeshift dummy. The dagger slices through the air, but it's not enough. Vaelon expects more from me, and I refuse to disappoint him, or myself. "Faster, Rhea!" he barks, his crimson eyes tracking my every move. "You're not just fighting their strength, but their magic. You need to be quicker than their spells." I grit my teeth and pour every ounce of my being into the attack, the world around me narrowing to the rhythm of my heartbeat and the swish of the blade. The dummy falls apart under my onslaught, and I allow myself a moment of triumph before turning to Vaelon for his approval. He nods, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "Good. Now, let's see if you can do that against something that fights back," he suggests. The obstacle course he constructed is a nightmare of ropes, logs, and hidden traps. I navigate it with a mix of trepidation and determination, my body aching from the constant exertion. Vaelon watches from the sidelines, his arms crossed over his chest, his expression unreadable. I leap over a pit, roll under a swinging log, and slash through a curtain of vines, only to be doused with a bucket of cold water triggered by a tripwire. I sputter, my clothes clinging to my skin, but I don't stop. I can't stop, not when I'm so close to becoming the fierce warrior I need to be. But it's not just about the fighting. Every time Valen's gaze meets mine, there's an undercurrent of something else. A tension that has nothing to do with our training and everything to do with the intimacy we've shared. It's a great distraction, yet I find myself seeking it out more and more, craving the connection that both sustains and complicates our relationship. As the sun begins to set, we launch our latest attack on a Dark Elf supply caravan. I move like a shadow in the night, my newfound speed and strength allowing me to take down 2 guards before they even realise I'm there. Vaelon fights with lethal precision beside me as always, his sword a streak of silver in the dim light. One of the Dark Elves lunges at me, his blade aimed for my heart. I quickly sidestep his attack, my body moving almost of its own accord. I strike back, my dagger finding its mark in his side. He collapses with a gurgled cry, and I'm already moving on to the next target, my heart pounding frantically. We retreat into the forest, our mission accomplished, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins makes it impossible to sleep. I find Vaelon sitting by the fire, his eyes reflecting the dancing flames. "You did well again tonight," he says, his voice soft yet resonant. I sit down beside him, the heat of the fire warming my chilled skin. "I'm tired of doing well," I admit. "I want to be the best. I want them to fear me." Vaelon turns to look at me, his gaze intense, and says, "They already do, Rhea. You've surpassed anything I could have imagined when I first found you injured in that forest." His words ignite a spark of pride within me, but it's quickly overshadowed by the desire that simmers just beneath the surface of our every interaction. I lean in without thinking, my lips brushing against his in a silent plea for comfort, for connection, for something more than the endless cycle of blood and vengeance. Valen responds with a hunger that matches my own, his hands tangling in my hair as he deepens the kiss. It's a moment of respite, a brief escape from the reality of our existence. But as our bodies separate, I can't help but wonder if this fragile bond we're forging will be enough to withstand the storm that's brewing on the horizon. The Dark Elves are closing in on us, their hunters relentless in their pursuit. We've become more than just a nuisance to them. We've become a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope for those who have none. Over the next several days, the forest becomes my new master as I train even harder. Its demands are more brutal than any Dark Elf taskmaster I've ever had. Valen's voice echoes in my head, a relentless drumbeat urging me to push beyond my limits. Faster, Rhea. Stronger. You must be relentless. I run for miles and miles until my lungs scream for mercy, the dagger at my side a constant companion. The forest blurs around me, a kaleidoscope of greys and browns that seem to mock my human frailty. Again, Valen commands after I've barely caught my breath. His face is a stoic mask, but his voice betrays a hint of urgency. You think the Dark Elves will give you a moment's rest? They won't, so neither will I. Frustration boils over within me, a tempest of anger and exhaustion. I stop, my hands on my hips, and glare at him. Why are you pushing me so hard? I'm not like you, Valen. I can't just shrug off fatigue and pain, I argue. He strides toward me, his movements fluid and predatory. No, you're not like me. Not yet. But you will be. You must be if we're to have any chance of surviving, let alone winning this war, he replies firmly. I clench my fists, the scar on my wrist aching with the memory of my past. And what if I can't? What if I'm just not strong enough? I ask. Valen's gaze softens for a fleeting moment, a rare crack in his impenetrable armour. You are stronger than you give yourself credit for, Rhea. You've already proven that to me. But true strength isn't just about the body, it's about the mind, the heart. You must want this, want it more than breath, more than life itself, he says emphatically. My breath hitches in my throat as I meet his gaze. I do want it. I want it so badly it scares me, I admit. Good, he says. Let that fear fuel you. I nod, determination setting in my jaw. We spar deep into the night. The sounds of our clashing weapons a fierce symphony. I strike with all the fury I possess, but Vaelon is always one step ahead, his movements a blur of supernatural speed and precision. In a moment of desperation, I lunge at him, my dagger aimed at his heart. But he's a ghost, insubstantial and untouchable. Before I can react, he's behind me, his arm wrapping around my waist in a vice-like grip that pins my arms to my sides. I struggle against his hold, but it's futile. Let me go, I demand, my voice laced with frustration. Valen's breath is hot against my ear as he murmurs, Never. The word sends a shiver down my spine, and for a moment I stop struggling. His embrace is both a prison and a sanctuary, a reminder of the complex bond we've forged. This is not defeat, Rhea, he says softly. It's a lesson. You must be aware of every possible angle of attack, and every potential vulnerability, including your own. I relax into his hold, my body leaning into the solid wall of his chest. And what if my greatest vulnerability is standing right behind me? She asks softly. He releases me abruptly, and I turn to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. His gaze flickers to my lips, then back to my eyes, the silence between us charged with unspoken desires and bitter truths. Then we are both in danger, he admits, his voice a low rumble that resonates through me. I take a step back, putting much-needed distance between us. I don't want to be a distraction, Valen. Not to you and not to myself, I say. He reaches out to me, his fingers brushing against my cheek in a gesture that's almost tender. You could never be just a distraction, Rhea. You are the heart of this rebellion, the fierce, indomitable spirit that refuses to be extinguished. And I will do everything in my power to protect you, he insists. With those words hanging in the air, we return to our training, the significance of our shared destiny pressing down upon us like the heavy canopy of the forest. The path ahead is sure to be fraught with peril, but together I believe we are a force to be reckoned with.
Chapter 13. Valen. Rhea's eyes flash with defiance, her small frame practically vibrating with the need to prove herself. "Come on, Valen," she taunts, her voice a lash in the quiet clearing. "I'm not made of glass. Show me what you've got." I clench my jaw, a flicker of irritation mingling with the reluctant admiration for her spirit. "This is not a game, Rhea," I warn, my voice low and steady. "You can't handle me." She steps forward, her practiced sword glinting in the dappled sunlight. "Oh yes, I can," she retorts, her hazel eyes locked onto mine. I sigh, knowing that look in her eyes. It's the same one that stared back at me from the reflection of still water for centuries. It's the look of someone with nothing to lose and everything to fight for. With a nod, I draw my own blade, the weight of it familiar and comforting in my hand. We circle each other, the air humming with tension. Rhea lunges first, her movements swift but predictable. I sidestep her attack easily, my body reacting on instinct honed by countless battles. She growls in frustration, her grip tightening on her weapon. We clash again, the sound of steel on steel ringing out. Our bodies brush against each other, a fleeting contact that sends a jolt of heat coursing through me. I grit my teeth, forcing myself to focus on the fight, not the intoxicating scent of her. Rhea's persistence is both infuriating and arousing. Each time she comes at me, I find myself having to hold back, to resist the urge to overpower her completely. I can't afford to hurt her, not when she's finally becoming the weapon we need against our common enemy. "You're holding back," she accuses, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. "I don't want to hurt you," I admit, my voice gruff. "I can take it," she insists, her eyes blazing with a fire that ignites a primal urge within me. Our dance continues, a ballet of strikes and parries. With each passing moment, Rhea's movements become more fluid, her attacks more daring. I find myself having to work harder to evade her, to anticipate her next move. Finally, I decide to up the ante. I feint left, then swiftly move right, disarming her with a well-placed strike. Her sword flies from her hand, landing several feet away in the underbrush. Before she can react, I've got her pinned against a tree, my body pressed firmly against hers. "Do you yield?" I ask, my face inches from her own. Her chest heaves against mine, her eyes wide but defiant. "Never," she breathes, the single word heavy with conviction. I can feel the rapid thrumming of her heart, a mirror of my own. The heat between us is undeniable, a living thing that crackles and sparks in the space where our bodies meet. For a moment, neither of us moves, caught in the web of our shared desire. Reluctantly, I release Rhea. I step back to regain my composure, but the air between us is charged with an electric tension that refuses to dissipate. In this moment, I'm acutely aware of how easily she slipped beneath my defenses. "Relax for a while, Rhea," I say, my voice betraying none of the turmoil roiling beneath my surface. "You've earned it." I turn to leave, but her voice stops me cold. "Valen!" she calls out, her tone laced with a challenge I can't ignore. I glance back, and that's when she strikes, a sudden, forceful shove that sends me sprawling to the ground. Before I can react, she's on top of me, her practice sword pressed against my throat. Her chest heaves with exertion, and her eyes blaze with triumph. Yield, she demands, her voice a sultry whisper that sends a jolt of desire coursing through me. I could easily overpower her, but I find myself captivated by her audacity. You've made your point, I growl, my hands gripping her slender waist. She drops the sword and it falls to the forest floor with a muted thud. Her lips suddenly crash into mine with a fierceness that matches the spirit of the warrior she's become. I return the kiss with equal fervor, my tongue parting her lips and tasting the sweetness beneath. In one swift motion, I roll her over onto her back, my body pinning hers to the soft earth. My hands roam over her chest, firm and insistent, feeling the rapid beat of her heart beneath the thin fabric of her shirt. She moans softly at the pressure of my hard member pressing against her, a sound that fans the flames of my desire. Valen, she breathes, her voice a mixture of surprise and longing. Say it again, I command, my lips trailing hot, open-mouthed kisses down the column of her throat. Valen, she complies, her fingers threading through my hair and pulling me closer. I claim her mouth once more, my kiss dominating, possessive. Without thinking, my hands continue their exploration, sliding beneath her shirt to feel the warmth of her skin. She arches into my touch, her body responding to mine with an urgency that mirrors my own. You're driving me mad, Rhea, I confess, my voice husky with need. She smiles against my lips, her hazel eyes gleaming with mischief. Good, she says, her tone playful yet resolute. Filled with a sudden panic, I scoop her into my arms, her body still flushed with the heat of our sparring session. We are too exposed here, too vulnerable to the ever-watchful eyes of our enemies. Her hazel eyes gaze up at me with a mixture of confusion and desire that sets my blood ablaze. I can feel the rapid beat of her heart against my chest, a drumbeat that echoes the primal urge still pulsing through my veins. Valen, she murmurs again, her voice a soft melody that soothes the beast within me. Quiet, I command, my tone gruffer than intended. I cannot allow myself to be distracted by the sweetness of her voice, or the intoxicating scent of her skin. I carry her through the dense forest, my Vrakan senses alert to every sound, every shift in the wind. The journey back to our hideout is a test of my self-control, with Rhea's body pressed against mine, her warmth seeping into my very bones. I remind myself that she is more than just a source of my growing obsession. She is my ally, and perhaps something more that I have yet to fully comprehend. Upon reaching the seclusion of our cave, I set her down gently. Yet the moment her feet touch the ground, I spin her around and pin her against the cool stone wall. My body cages hers, my hands braced on either side of her head. I lean in, my breath fanning across her cheek as I speak. Do you have any idea what you do to me, Rhea? I growl, my voice barely more than a whisper. How much I want you! Her lips part in a silent gasp, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. Valen, she says, her voice trembling ever so slightly. I silence her with another kiss, my lips claiming hers with a possessive hunger that brooks no resistance. My tongue traces the seam of her lips, demanding entry, and she yields to me with a soft moan that ignites a fire deep within my core. As our tongues tangle in a passionate dance, I press my body against hers, letting her feel the hard, undeniable proof of my desire. I grind against her, a low rumble of approval escaping my throat as she responds with an eager tilt of her hips. Through the thin fabric of our clothing, I can feel the heat of her arousal, the wet world that betrays her own unspoken need. I break the kiss, my lips trailing a path of fiery kisses down the slender column of her throat. You're mine, Rhea, I rasp, my teeth grazing the sensitive skin where her pulse flutters like a trapped butterfly. Say it. She whimpers, her fingers threading through my hair as she arches into my touch. I'm yours, Valen, she breathes, her voice laced with the desperation that mirrors my own. The beast within me roars in triumph, but I know I must tread carefully. I cannot take her quite yet, but I can pleasure her a little bit, show her the depths of the passion that simmers between us. My hands roam over her body, exploring every curve, every dip and valley. I cup her chest through the fabric of her shirt, my thumbs teasing her buds into taut peaks. She moans, her body writhing against mine, seeking the friction that will send her over the edge. "You see, Rhea," I murmur, my voice hoarse with desire, "I can make you feel things you've never even dreamed of." She nods, her eyes glazed. "I understand, Valen," she whispers, her hand reaching up to caress my cheek. I capture her hand in mine and press a tender kiss to her palm.
Earth is pretty much a desolate wasteland since the orcs came over from Protheka, and being a woman, the best you can hope is to be someone's property. Now, after my curvy body catches Korthar's eye, he'll claim me, and I'll serve him, in any way he pleases.
You're mine now. Listen to this story and more when you get the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka audiobook and ebook bundle.
40 books, 19 audiobooks, 19 ebooks. You even get 1 free novella and 1 free audiobook.
All for a shocking 90% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal, and the complete Orc Warriors of Protheka bundle will bring over 100 hours of that magic to you. Chapter 14. Rhea. I'm not sure I can do this, I whisper, my voice trembling with a mix of desire and fear. The cool air of the cave brushes against my skin, making me acutely aware of my vulnerability. Valen's gaze is intense, his crimson eyes burning with a need that mirrors my own. "You can," he replies, his voice a low rumble that sends shivers through me. "You've faced every challenge I've thrown at you. You've grown braver." I swallow hard, my heart racing. "This is different," I whisper. The heat of his body radiates against me. "Yes, it is. But I believe you want this too, Rhea," he whispers in a husky tone. His words ignite something within me, a fierce desire that has been growing ever since I met him. I nod, my decision made. "Okay, I trust you," I whisper. A low growl escapes his throat, a sound that is both terrifying and exhilarating. In one swift motion, he lifts me off the ground, carrying me to the makeshift bed in the corner of the cave. He lays me down gently, his hands roaming over my body with an urgency that is palpable. His touch is both tender and demanding, igniting a raging fire within me that I never knew existed. I gasp as he rips my clothes off, exposing me to the cool air and his molten gaze. "Vaelon," I breathe out. "I've got you," he assures me, his voice a soothing balm against my nerves.
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for this platform to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable.
His words send a thrill through me, a sense of belonging and security that I've never felt before. With Vaelon, I found not just a mentor and a lover, but a partner in the truest sense of the word. As I drift off to sleep in Valen's arms, I can't help but feel a sense of peace. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be.
Chapter 15. Valen. The night is a quiet beast tonight, its breath held in anticipation of our next move. The supply camp below us is a sleeping giant. The Dark Elves' fires burn low, and their guards' attention wanes with the late hour. Rhea's crouching beside me, her presence a constant hum in my heightened senses. Since our intimate night together, the world has taken on a new hue, one where every shadow holds danger, and every moment with her is a stolen fragment of time I never knew I craved. I signal to Rhea, a subtle nod that sets our plan into motion. We've done this dance before, each step choreographed in the safety of our hidden camp, each cut and push practiced until it became as natural as breathing. But tonight, something feels off. My instincts, honed over centuries of survival and subterfuge, scream at me to retreat immediately, to pull Rhea back into the embrace of the darkness that has become our sanctuary. Yet unfortunately, we're in too deep now. But I can't shake the gnawing fear in my gut, the fear that something might happen to her if we go any further. I simply cannot bear the thought of losing the one person who has managed to thaw the ice encasing my heart for centuries. Slowly we move as one. Our footfalls are silent upon the forest floor, our forms blending with the night. The camp is within striking distance now, the guards oblivious to the storm about to descend upon them. I can almost taste the victory, the sweet satisfaction of another successful raid. But then suddenly the air shatters with the deadly whisper of arrows. We stand frozen briefly, the world around us erupting into chaos. Rhea's eyes meet mine, wide with surprise but devoid of fear nevertheless. She's a true warrior now, her spirit forged in the fires of our relentless war against the Dark Elves. "Down!" I shout, my voice cutting through the cacophony. I tackle her to the ground, my body shielding hers as the arrows rain down around us. The ground beneath us erupts in a storm of debris, the enemy's archers having pinpointed our location with alarming accuracy. Rhea gasps beneath me, her heart racing in sync with my own. "Valen," she breathes, her voice steady despite the danger. "We need to move now." I nod, my mind racing through our options. The element of surprise is gone, but we're not out of the fight yet. "Stay low," I instruct, helping her to her feet. We dart from one patch of cover to another, the enemy's arrows chasing our every step. We soon reach the relative safety of a thick cluster of trees, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. Rhea leans against the trunk of an ancient oak, her eyes scanning the chaos of the battlefield. "They were waiting for us," she says, her voice laced with irritation and slight surprise. I grit my teeth, the truth of her words settling like a lead weight on my chest. "They knew we were coming," I mutter. The realization stings, a reminder that we're not just fighting mindless soldiers. We're up against a cunning and resourceful enemy. Suddenly, Dark Elves spring from every direction and rush towards us, their blades gleaming in the moonlight. I swing my blade with ease, cutting down the first Dark Elf that dares to challenge me. The moonlight casts an ethereal glow on the battlefield, turning the chaos into a grotesque dance of death and desperation. Rhea is a blur of motion to my right, her sword singing a deadly song as she fights with the fury of a woman reborn in fire and vengeance. "Fall back!" I bellow, my voice a primal roar that slices through the din of clashing steel. But Rhea is already too deep within the enemy ranks, her body moving with a lethal grace that I've come to know all too well. All of a sudden, pain sears through my side, a white-hot lance that steals my breath. An arrow tipped with the venomous blood of a demon finds its mark. The toxin is a vile concoction, designed to fell even the mightiest of my kind. My vision starts to swim, the world tilting dangerously as I stumble backwards, my hand instinctively going to the wound. Warm blood coats my fingers and a wave of dizziness washes over me. I grit my teeth tight, forcing myself to remain standing. The Dark Elves close in, their smug grins taunting me with the promise of victory. I can't let them see my weakness. Can't let them know that with each heartbeat, my strength ebbs away like the receding tide. Rhea is still fighting unaware of my injury, her every move a testament to the strength and resilience she's gained over these past several weeks. She's a beacon of defiance amidst the sea of darkness that threatens to consume us both. But with the poison coursing through my veins, I'm losing the ability to protect her, to ensure her survival in this brutal world we've chosen to defy. Valen. Her voice cuts through the fog of pain, a lifeline in the midst of the storm. I can hear the concern etched into the syllables of my name, the underlying note of fear that she's trying so desperately to mask. The growing numbers of Dark Elves approaching seems to be overwhelming even her. "I'm here," I manage to growl, my sword arm wavering as I slash at another attacker. The blade feels heavy in my grasp, the weight of centuries bearing down upon me in this single, crucial moment. A Dark Elf lunges at me, his blade aimed for my heart. I sidestep the attack, my counter-strike finding its mark in his throat. His eyes widen in shock, a silent scream dying on his lips as he collapses at my feet. But for everyone I cut down, 2 more take their place, their number seemingly endless. The world tilts and blurs, a maelstrom of shadows and steel. My body moves on pure instinct alone, a dance of death I've performed 1,000 times before. But this time it's different. This time I'm not just fighting for my own survival at this point. I'm fighting for Rhea, the woman who has become my everything in this cursed existence. A Dark Elf lunges at her from behind, his blade arcing through the air with lethal intent. Time slows to a crawl, every detail etched into my consciousness with crystal clarity. I see the malicious glee in his eyes, the triumphant sneer twisting his lips. I see Rhea, her focus locked on the enemy in front of her, oblivious to the threat creeping up from behind. I can't think. I act. With a roar that tears from the depths of my being, I throw myself between them. The impact is a sledgehammer to my chest, the force of it driving the air from my lungs and knocking me off my feet. I hit the ground hard, the world around me fading to a distant hum. Darkness creeps in at the edges of my vision, a relentless tide threatening to drag me under. I fight it, clawing at consciousness with everything I have left. I can't afford to succumb, not when Rhea's life hangs in the balance. Her voice cuts through the fog, a lifeline in the chaos. "Valen!" she screams, her tone a mixture of fear and fury. "Stay with me!" I want to answer her, to tell her that I'm here, that I'll always be here to protect her. But the words won't come, my voice a mere whisper lost in the cacophony of battle. I watch, helpless, slipping in and out of consciousness, as Rhea transforms before my eyes. Gone is the scared slave I found in the woods, replaced by a fierce warrior whose spirit cannot be broken. She's a force of nature, a hurricane of vengeance and determination. And in this moment, I've never been prouder of anyone in my long, lonely existence. But pride is a luxury I can't afford. The poison from the Dark Elf's arrow is a relentless invader, coursing through my veins and sapping my strength with each passing second. My body is growing heavier, the cold grip of unconsciousness tightening around me. I can feel myself slipping away, my connection to the physical world becoming tenuous and frayed. I struggle against the encroaching darkness, my thoughts consumed by Rhea and the danger that still surrounds her. I hear her voice again, softer this time, a mere whisper carried on the wind. "Valen, please, don't leave me," she cries. The pain in her words is a dagger to my heart, a stark reminder of what's at stake. I try to speak, to offer some semblance of comfort, but my lips won't form the words. My vision is narrowing, the world reduced to a single point of light, Rhea's hazel eyes, flecked with gold and filled with unshed tears. And then everything goes black.
Chapter 16. Rhea. Blood drips from my blade as I slash through another Dark Elf, his shocked expression forever frozen on his face. My muscles scream in protest, but I can't stop, not with Vaelon down. The arrow jutting from his side glints with an unnatural sheen. Poison. "Come on, you bastards," I snarl, spinning to face 3 more attackers. They circle me like wolves, but I've learned from the best. I feint left, drawing one in close enough to gut him. His companions hesitate, just long enough for me to duck behind a tree. I grab a handful of dirt, waiting for the perfect moment. The first elf rounds the trunk, and I fling the soil into his eyes. His howl of pain cuts short as my blade finds his throat. The last one turns to flee, but an expertly thrown dagger, one of Valen's lessons, catches him in the spine. "Valen!" I cry out. I scramble to his side, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. His skin burns with fever, the poison working fast. I loop his arm over my shoulder, but his weight nearly crushes me. "Don't you dare die on me," I whisper. The cave looms ahead, our emergency shelter. Every step is agony as my shoulders strain under his weight. Blood, his blood, makes my grip slippery. I stumble but catch myself and push forward. "Just a little further," I pant, dragging him inside. My arms give out as we clear the entrance, and he slumps against me. "Stay with me, Vaelon. Please," I plead. The cave is a cold, dark embrace, but it's a sanctuary, one of the few we have left. Valen's unconscious form weighs heavily in my arms, his lifeblood pooling beneath him. My hands are sticky with it, the metallic tang filling my nostrils as I press down on the wound with a piece of torn cloth. The cloth is soaked through in moments, the dark fabric absorbing the evidence of his vulnerability. A shuddering breath escapes me as I realise the gravity of the situation. He's a Vrakan, strong, nearly immortal. But the poison coursing through his veins is from a demon, a rare breed that can fell even the mightiest of his kind. I can't lose him. Not now, not when we've come so far, not when I've only just begun to understand the depth of my feelings for him. It's a confusing tangle of emotions, fear, desperation, and something more tender, a budding affection that took root in the soil of our shared struggles. My gaze flickers to the entrance of the cave, where shadows dance with the flickering light of the fire I've built. It's a beacon, a signal that could draw the wrong kind of attention, but I can't tend to him in the dark, and I need the heat to stave off the chill that's seeping into my bones. I lean over him, my ear hovering above his mouth, listening for the faint whisper of his breath. It's there, shallow and ragged, but it's there. Relief washes over me, quickly followed by a renewed sense of urgency. I need to find a way to counteract the poison. "Vaelon," I say, my voice barely above a whisper, "I need you to fight this. You've taught me so much, shown me how to survive, how to fight. But I never got the chance to learn how to save you." I pause, waiting for a response. A squeeze of my hand, a flutter of his eyelids, anything. But there's nothing. The silence is a heavy shroud, smothering the frantic beating of my heart. "I need you, Vaelon. I need you to wake up. We have unfinished business," I say softly. My eyes burn with unshed tears, but I refuse to let them fall. Crying won't save him. Action will. I glance around the cave, my mind racing with possibilities. There are herbs out there, plants with medicinal properties that I've learned about during our time together. If I can find the right ones, combine them in the right way, maybe, just maybe, I can save him. With a final lingering look at Valen's pale face, I rise to my feet. I grab my cloak, pulling it tight around my shoulders as I step out into the night. I move with purpose, my eyes scanning the ground for the telltale signs of the plants I need. My fingers brush against something soft and velvety. Moonlace, a plant known for its healing properties. I pluck it from the soil, adding it to the small pouch at my side. Next, I find nightshade, its dark berries gleaming like precious stones in the moonlight. It's a dangerous plant, one that can easily kill if used improperly, but in the right dosage, it can counteract the effects of the demon poison. I return to the cave with my haul, my breath coming in short, exhausted pants. Valen is exactly as I left him, his chest rising and falling with the barest hint of life. I set to work, grinding the plants into a fine paste, mixing them with water to create a makeshift antidote. My hands tremble as I lift his head, pressing the concoction to his lips, praying to any god that might be listening to let this work. "You're strong, Valen," I say, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "Fight. Fight for me. For us. For the future we could have if you'd just open your eyes." I wait, watching for any sign of improvement, any indication that the poison is being purged from his system. Minutes turn into hours, the night deepening around us as I keep my silent vigil. My heart stutters as Valen's eyelids flutter, a faint glimmer of crimson peeking through. I lean closer, my hand gently cradling his cheek. "Valen," I whisper. His eyes open, just a sliver, but it's enough to send a jolt of hope through me. He tries to speak, but his voice is nothing more than a hoarse rasp. I press my fingers to his lips, silencing him. "Shh, don't try to talk. You need to save your strength," I whisper. His gaze holds mine, a silent conversation passing between us. There's a question in his eyes, one that I'm not yet ready to answer. How do I tell him that he's become more than just a mentor, more than a comrade in arms? How do I confess that his presence has become as vital to me as the air I breathe? The memory of our night together surfaces unbidden, a bittersweet reminder of what we shared. His touch was both fierce and tender, a contradiction that mirrored the man himself. I remember the way he looked at me, as if I were the only person in his world, the only one that mattered. It was a look that I had never seen before, one that I never wanted to end. But now, as I watch him battle the poison coursing through his veins, that memory feels like a double-edged sword. It's a beacon of light in the darkness of our situation, yet it also threatens to distract me from the reality of our fight. I swallow hard, the words of affection lodged in my throat. What if speaking them aloud weakens us, gives the Dark Elves another advantage? What if it changes the dynamic between us, complicating our mission with emotions that have no place on the battlefield? I dot. The confession dies on my lips, replaced by a promise that I hope I can keep. I won't let them win, Vaelon. I won't let them take you from me, I say. I offer him a small, reassuring smile, though inside I'm a tempest of fear and determination. "Rest now," I murmur. "I'll keep watch." I retreat to the mouth of the cave, my eyes scanning the forest for any sign of movement. The night is quiet, but I know better than to trust the calm. The Dark Elves are out there, biding their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the battles to come. I've learned so much from Valen, how to fight, how to survive, but the most important lesson he's taught me is to never give up, to keep fighting for what I believe in, no matter the odds. And as I stand there for a moment, I make a silent vow of my own. I will do whatever it takes to save Vaelon, to ensure that our fight against the Dark Elves doesn't end here, in the shadows of a forgotten cave. I soon return back to Valen's side and watch over him. The steady rise and fall of his chest is a reminder that he's still with me, still fighting. And in the silence of the cave, with only the crackling of the fire for company, I allow myself to acknowledge the truth that's been simmering beneath the surface of my consciousness. I love him.
Chapter 17. Valen. I awake with a start. The sound of approaching footsteps outside slices through the oppressive silence within the cave. My instincts roar to life, centuries of battle experience screaming at me to move. But as I try to push myself up, a searing agony grips me. My muscles seize, rooting me to the cold, hard ground. Every heartbeat sends fresh waves of pain radiating from the wound in my side. Through the haze of agony, I catch Ria's scent, a mixture of forest earth and sweat. She's been keeping watch over me all night. Dark circles rim her eyes and her clothes are stained with my blood. She notices my movement and leans in closer. "You're awake," she whispers, relief evident in her voice. Her hazel eyes meet mine. "You saved my life," I tell her, my voice filled with gratitude. "You've saved mine countless times," she replies. "It's the least I could do." She tries to look away, but I cup her chin, forcing her gaze back to mine. Our gazes lock, and for a moment the world outside ceases to exist. It's just her and me, bound by an unspoken and undeniable connection. She leans into my touch, closing her eyes for the briefest of moments. The tranquility is shattered by the unmistakable sound of something snapping outside the cave. Ria's eyelids fly open, her eyes now wide with fear. She moves to stand, but I grasp her wrist, shaking my head. "Stay down," I murmur, my voice barely above a whisper. "No, we need to move now," Ria whispers, her hands trembling as she helps me to my feet. The pain is a white-hot poker in my side, but I grit my teeth, pushing through it. We stumble toward the cave's exit, the darkness outside pressing against the mouth of our temporary sanctuary like a living thing. The moment we step outside, I know something is wrong. The forest is eerily silent, the usual cacophony of nocturnal creatures conspicuously absent. Ria stiffens beside me, her eyes scanning the tree line. I can sense them. Dark Elves. Their presence is a foul taste in the back of my throat. They've been waiting for us all night long, hidden in the shadows. I curse under my breath, a low, guttural sound that echoes through the stillness. We're surrounded, a semicircle of bow-wielding enemies standing between us and freedom. Ria and I stand there frozen, the gravity of the situation pressing down on us like the weight of the world. Her hand finds mine, her grip firm despite the fear I know she must be feeling. "Stay close," I murmur, my voice barely audible. The alpha in me roars to the surface, a primal need to protect her at all costs. I position myself between Ria and the Dark Elves, my body a shield for her fragile human form. My wound pulses with each heartbeat, but I ignore it, focusing instead on the faces of our enemies. The leader of the Dark Elf contingent steps forward, a smug smile playing on his lips. "Valen," he calls out, his tone mocking. "You are far from your former glory, it seems." I glare at him, saying nothing. My reputation precedes me, and I know they expect me to be the ruthless, Vrakan warrior of legend. Ria's hand tightens around mine, her fear a palpable thing. I can feel her trembling, but there's a fire in her eyes that tells me she won't go down without a fight. "You think you can defeat us?" the Dark Elf taunts. "You're outnumbered and outmatched." I bare my teeth in a silent snarl, my gaze never leaving his. "We'll see about that," I say, my voice steady despite the pain. Ria steps up beside me, her chin held high. "We have nothing to lose," she declares, her soft voice carrying an edge of steel. The Dark Elves laugh, a cruel, grating sound that sets my teeth on edge. But I can see the flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. They know we're dangerous, even at our weakest. "Very well," the leader says, drawing his sword. "Let's see how well you dance with death." I draw my own weapon, the familiar weight of it in my hand a small comfort. Ria readies herself, her grip on her dagger sure and steady. We stand together, united in our resolve to fight until the very end. A cold smile spreads across another Dark Elf's face, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You've caused us a lot of trouble, Vrakan, but it ends here," he hisses. Anger flares within my chest and I charge at him, but my body betrays me, the pain in my side flaring up like an inferno. I suddenly collapse to my knees and my sword slips from my grasp. The world spins and the faces of the Dark Elves in front of me blur. Their laughter is a bitter melody in my ears. They close in on me quickly and drag me to my feet. I thrash in their grip, but my strength is gone, sapped by the remnants of poison still in my veins. I'm helpless, and the realization hits me like a punch to the gut. Ria is captured as well, her wrists bound in chains. She fights against them with a ferocity that would make any warrior proud. Her eyes meet mine, and I see the fire in them dim slightly, replaced by a haunting resignation. I've failed you, I whisper, more to myself than her. The journey to the elf noble's manor is a blur of pain and regret. Upon our arrival, they drag us down into the dungeon. The cold, damp stones are a stark reminder of our precarious predicament. Rhea and I are chained to opposite walls, the heavy manacles biting into our flesh. The darkness of the dungeon is oppressive, a tangible weight that presses down on us. I watch Rhea through the darkness, my enhanced vision allowing me to see her clearly despite the gloom. For centuries, I've relied on no one but myself, yet this former slave risked everything to save me. You should have left me behind, I say, my voice rough with emotion I can't quite suppress. She shifts in her chains, those fierce hazel eyes finding mine. Like you left me in the forest that day, she counters. The parallel strikes me silent. My chest tightens with an unfamiliar warmth. In all my years as a warrior, as a lord, no one has shown such loyalty without expecting anything in return. The realization hits me hard. I owe this woman more than just my life. Thank you, I manage, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. For not giving up on me when you could have saved yourself. We're in this together, she replies simply, and despite our dire situation. My mind soon races with plans of escape, but each one crumbles to dust as I remember the chains that bind us, the guards that stand watch outside our cell. I close my eyes, trying to summon the strength that has carried me through centuries of battle and bloodshed. But it's elusive, a phantom that dances just beyond my reach. I am a Vraken, a creature of power and darkness, yet here I am, defeated and chained like a common criminal. I slump against the cold dungeon wall, the chains rattling with my movement. The wound in my side throbs, a constant reminder of my failure. Centuries of careful planning, of staying one step ahead. And now here I am, chained like a common prisoner. But it's not my capture that tears at my soul. It's hers. I should have known better. I growl into the darkness. Should have sensed the trap. Valen, don't! Rhea's voice comes from across the cell, steady despite our circumstances. My fists clench, the manacles biting into my wrists. I trained you to fight, to survive, and instead I led you straight back to them, I mutter. The words taste bitter in my mouth. Everything I touch turns to ash. That's not true, she replies. Isn't it? I cut her off, my voice sharp with self-loathing. I was supposed to protect you, and now you're back in chains. Just like before. The memory of her body pressed against mine, the taste of her lips, the way she trusted me. It all burns now, a mockery of my promises to keep her safe. I've lived for centuries, fought countless battles, and yet I let my guard down at the worst possible moment. I got careless, I mutter, more to myself than to her. Let myself feel... I trail off, unable to finish the thought. The truth is, I let myself care, and that weakness has damned us both. The silence stretches between us, broken only by the distant drip of water. In the darkness, I can hear her steady heartbeat, a rhythm that has become as familiar to me as my own. Another reminder of what I stand to lose.
Chapter 18. Rhea. Chains dig into my wrists, suspending me in this dank cell that reeks of despair and decay. Every muscle in my body screams in protest as the chill of the stone seeps into my bones. Across from me, Valen is a pale shadow of the warrior I've come to know. His usual vitality has been leached away by the remnants of poison and pain. Our eyes meet, and in his crimson gaze, I search for some semblance of hope, some sign that we can endure this too. But there's a vulnerability there that I've never seen before, and it terrifies me. The clanking of metal against stone heralds the approach of Ageless, the dark elf noble whose cruel whims have dictated the course of my life for far too long. Ah, the lovely Rhea, he croons, his voice slithering through the air like a venomous serpent. How the mighty have fallen. I meet his cold eyes with a glare that could cut steel. You think this makes you mighty, lording over 2 prisoners? I sneer. Aelith chuckles, his fingers tracing the hilt of the ornate dagger at his belt. Oh, I'm not here to gloat about my catch, he sings. Valen's gaze sharpens, his body tensing despite his weakened state. What do you want, Aelith? Vaelon growls. The Dark Elf turns to Vaelon, his smile widening. I want you to know that your little rebellion has been entertaining, but it ends now, he demands. My heart hammers as I watch this exchange, a sense of dread coiling in my gut. Aelith is toying with us, drawing out the inevitable for his own twisted amusement. And what? I interject, my voice steady despite the fear that claws at my throat. Do you plan to do with us? I ask snidely. Aelith's gaze slides back to me, his eyes glinting with malicious glee. Why, Rhea, don't you know? You're the star of the show, the final act in our little hunting game, he hisses. A wave of nausea washes over me. I've seen what happens in these games, the torture, the slaughter, and I know that Vaelon and I are meant to be the grand finale. But then, Aelith drops his bomb. Didn't the great Vraken tell you? Your beloved parents are still alive. Imagine that. All this time, fighting for vengeance, and they've been in our care, he says in his slithering tone. The world tilts beneath my feet. My parents, alive? Valen's eyes meet mine, filled with a mixture of regret and uncertainty. My mind races. Why should I believe you? I ask skeptically. Aelith's smile never wavers. Believe what you will, but ask yourself, why would your precious Vraken lie to you? He replies. I turn to Vaelon, my heart a chaotic drumbeat against my ribcage. Is it true? I ask him in a soft voice. Valen's silence is a knife in my chest. He doesn't respond, just hangs his head in defeat. Aelith claps his hands together, his laughter bouncing off the stone walls. Oh, how delightful! The bond between you two is truly something to behold, he says, his voice tinged with sadistic glee. I ignore him, my focus solely on Vaelon. Valen's colour drains from his already pale face. Rhea, he starts. Enough! Aelith's voice cuts through our exchange like a whip. This touching reunion has been most enlightening, but we have a proposition for you, Rhea, he says. Aelith stands before me, a smug grin on his face as he gestures toward Vaelon with a flourish. Rhea, dear, you have a choice to make, he says, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Your beloved parents are indeed alive, and you can save them. All you have to do is end the Vraken's life. My heart suddenly threatens to burst from my ribcage. Show them to me, I demand, my voice steady, despite the turmoil raging within. Aelith snaps his fingers, and the heavy wooden door creaks open. My parents shuffle in, their bodies marred by the cruel hands of their captors. Chains clink with each hesitant step they take, their eyes wide with terror and confusion. I lurch forward, a desperate cry escaping my lips as I reach for them. But before our fingers can brush, the Dark Elves yank them back. The sound of my mother's scream and my father's futile struggle is a dagger to my heart. Mother! Father! I scream, my voice raw with anguish. Valen's gaze meets mine, a silent plea for understanding. He knows the significance of this choice, the crushing pressure of a life hanging in the balance. Aelith saunters over to me, a wicked gleam in his eye as he presses a dagger into my trembling hand. The cool metal of the hilt is a stark contrast to the heat of my rage and despair. Kill him, and your parents go free, Aelith whispers in my ear, his breath foul against my skin. I look down at the dagger, its blade gleaming under the flickering torchlight. My mind races with the implications of what I'm being asked to do. Valen, the Vraken who has become my mentor, my protector, Could I truly end his life? The Dark Elves begin their vile work on Vaelon. Their instruments of torture elicit groans of agony that resonate deep within my soul. I watch, helpless, as they carve away at his flesh, each wound a testament to the cruelty of our captors. Valen's eyes never leave mine, even as his body convulses in pain. There's a message there, unspoken but clear. He would endure this 1,000 times over if it meant sparing me from making this choice. My fingers tighten around the hilt of the dagger. The heaviness of the decision before me is suffocating, a boulder resting on my chest, crushing the air from my lungs. Aelith watches me with a predatory gaze, his patience wearing thin. "Tick-tock, Rhea," he taunts. I look at Vaelon desperately, my vision blurring with tears. His face is a mask of pain, but there's a determination in his eyes that hasn't wavered. He's survived centuries of torment and loss, yet here he is, willing to face death if it means preserving my humanity and my family. The dagger feels like a betrayal in my hand, a tool of darkness meant to sever the bonds of trust and love we forged in the fires of adversity. I want to hurl it away, to rage against the impossible situation laid out before me. I can barely draw a breath now, the air in this stone hell thick with the stench of blood and fear. But my gaze never wavers from Valen's. His eyes are a storm of crimson agony. "Rhea," he whispers, his voice a ragged echo against the stone walls. I want to go to him, to offer some comfort, but I'm rooted to the spot, the weight of the dagger anchoring me in place. The Dark Elves watch with sadistic pleasure, their cruel laughter punctuating the silence that stretches between us. I turn to Aelith, my voice a fragile thread that might snap at any moment. "And if I refuse?" I ask. Aelith's smile is a cruel twist of lips. "Then they all die, and you'll have their blood on your hands," he states firmly. The room spins around me, the walls closing in with the relentless pressure of an ever-tightening vice. My breath comes in short, sharp gasps as I struggle to keep the rising tide of panic at bay. Valen's voice cuts through the fog of fear. "Rhea, look at me," he commands, his tone steady despite the pain that contorts his features. I meet his gaze, and in those fiery depths, I see the truth laid bare. He's ready to die, for me, for his own twisted sense of redemption. My fingers tremble around the hilt of the dagger. The very idea of harming him sends waves of nausea crashing over me. I dot. The word is a strangled cry, caught in the vice of my own inner turmoil. Valen's eyes soften, the lines of agony etched into his face easing for the briefest of moments. "I would face 1,000 deaths if it meant your freedom," he assures me. Aelith tisks, his impatience a palpable force in the room. How touching. "But time, dear Rhea, is not on your side," he admits. I glance at my parents once more, their eyes wide with terror and a glimmer of something that looks like hope. They believe in me, in the strength they instilled in me from the moment I was born. Can I let that hope die? I close my eyes, the dagger's edge pressing into my palm, a cruel reminder of the choice before me. My throat tightens, and for a moment, I allow myself to imagine a world without Vaelon, a world devoid of the fierce loyalty and unexpected tenderness he's shown me. The thought is unbearable.
Chapter 19. Valen. The sharp scent of my own blood fills the dank air of the dungeon. The Dark Elves torture me by peeling strips of skin from my body with a cruel, detached precision as I hang from chains. My vision swims, the torchlight casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. The pain is a dull roar in my ears, but it's nothing compared to the agony I feel seeing Rhea suffering in front of me. She clutches the dagger they've given her. Her hand trembles profusely. They've told her I've lied, that her parents are alive and dangling like bait just out of reach. I can see the shock and betrayal in her eyes, and it cuts deeper than any physical wound they've inflicted upon me. In my single-minded pursuit of revenge, I'd been reckless with her heart, assuming the worst when I saw her parents' likenesses among the dead at the Dark Elf celebration. I thought it a mercy to tell her they were gone, to spare her the pain of hope. But I'd been wrong. So wrong. "Rhea," I managed to say, my voice barely more than a hoarse whisper. "Look at me." Her gaze lifts to mine, her hazel eyes swimming with unshed tears, and says, "Valen, they said—" "I know what they said," I interrupt, my tone harsher than I intend. I soften it, adding, "But you know me, Rhea. You know who I am." She swallows hard, the dagger still clutched tightly in her hand. "I thought I did," she murmurs, her voice barely audible. I grimace, the movement pulling at my ravaged flesh. "I never lied to you intentionally," I tell her, my words carrying the weight of my regret. "I saw what I believed to be your parents. Amidst the chaos, I was careless with your pain. I'm sorry." Rhea takes a step toward me, her eyes searching mine. "Why should I believe you?" she asks, her voice laced with hesitation. I see doubt cloud her gaze. Aelith watches us with the satisfaction of a cat toying with its prey. He believes he has orchestrated the perfect tragedy, pitting us against each other in this macabre theater. The sting of her doubt cuts through me, yet I can understand it. I've lived centuries in the shadow of betrayal, my life irrevocably altered by the Dark Elves' treachery. I remember the night my world burned. The night my family died plays before my eyes, like a twisted puppet show. I see myself again, young and foolish, choosing to run when the Dark Elves breached our defenses. My father's voice rings in my head. "Save yourself, son, live! Make them pay!" I flex my fingers, feeling the phantom weight of my sword from that night. I was a coward back then. I watched from the shadows as they butchered my family, my sisters. Since that day, I've walked this earth alone, fueled by a singular desire for vengeance that has cost me everything. Until I met Rhea. The truth of it hits me like a physical blow. In all my years of existence, all the battles and blood and death, Rhea is the first person who made me feel something other than the burning need for revenge. She awakened something in me I thought had died with my family. Hope. I let out a slow breath, the heaviness of my past pressing down upon me like the chains that bind my wrists. "Because you're the only thing that matters to me," I confess, my words raw and honest. "You're the only light in the darkness of my existence." Rhea's gaze turns to her parents as the Dark Elves drag them out of the room. She then turns back to me. The agony of her impossible choice is etched upon her face, a reflection of the torment I felt when I chose survival over sacrifice all those years ago. I see the conflict within her, the battle between love and duty, between the life she has come to know with me and the family she has long believed lost. "Rhea," I say, my voice firm despite the weakness that threatens to consume me. "Whatever you decide, I will accept. I have lived centuries, and if my life is the price for your freedom, for the chance to save your family, then so be it." Her eyes widen, and for a moment, I see a flicker of something deeper, something that transcends the pain and the bloodshed. It is a connection forged in battle, solidified by shared loss and a burning desire for a life unmarred by the Dark Elves' tyranny. Rhea steps closer to me, each footfall echoing in the dungeon's oppressive silence. The dagger trembles in her grip. Blood drips down my chest from the torture wounds, but the physical pain pales against the ache in my chest as I watch her approach. "I trusted you," she whispers, her voice breaking, "with everything I am." My chains rattle as I shift, drawing myself up despite the agony coursing through my body. "And I trusted you with everything I've become," I say softly. Her hazel eyes lock with mine, swimming with tears she refuses to let fall. The fire I first saw in her that night in the forest still burns there, but now it's tinged with something else, betrayal, confusion, desperation. "My parents," she stammers out. She grips the dagger tighter, her knuckles white against the hilt. "Kill him now," Aelith calls from behind her, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "End his miserable existence, and save your family." I bare my teeth at him in a savage grin and say, "Your victory will be short-lived, Dark Elf. Whether by our hand or another's, you'll meet your end." Rhea's breath catches. She raises the dagger, its point aimed at my heart. My muscles tense involuntarily. "Do it," I tell her softly, my voice for her alone. "If you believe their lies, if you think I betrayed you, then end it. But know this." I lean forward, letting the blade's tip press against my chest. Everything we shared was real. Every moment, every touch, every promise. A single tear finally breaks free, trailing down her cheek. She steps closer, close enough that I can smell the salt of her tears mixing with the leather of her armor. The armor I helped her learn how to move in. "Valen." She trails off. My name on her lips sounds like a prayer and a curse all at once. I watch her grip shift on the dagger and I think, history repeats itself. Once again, I face an impossible choice. But this time, I choose to stay. To face whatever comes for me, even if it means death at the hands of the woman who's become my everything. I close my eyes, bracing myself for the inevitable. The weight of the situation presses down on me as I accept that Rhea, the one bright spark in my forsaken existence, no longer believes in me. The dagger's sharp edge is still pressed against my chest, and I suck in a harsh breath. My muscles coil tight, an ancient instinct to fight for survival warring with the grim resignation. I am Vaelon, a Vraken warrior felled by love rather than battle. An ignoble end, perhaps, but one I'll face with the same unflinching resolve that has carried me through centuries of bloodshed. I am prepared to die. I open my eyes again. I want Rhea's face to be the last thing I see when I die. Tears fall freely down her face now, making her hazel eyes glisten like amber in firelight. The dagger trembles against my chest, but I refuse to flinch. Let her see my strength even in these final moments. Her resolve hardens. I recognize that look. It's the same expression she wore when making her first kill. "I have to save them," she whispers, her voice cracking. "They're my family." My chains rattle again as I straighten once more, ignoring the searing pain. "Then do what you must," I say. The words taste like ash in my mouth, but I keep my voice steady, commanding. I won't beg, not even for her. A sob catches in her throat as she presses the blade harder against my skin. Blood wells around the tip, my blood, spilled by the woman I've grown to love. The irony would be amusing if it didn't hurt so damn much. "I'm so sorry," she breathes, and I see it in her eyes. The decision is made. Her grip on the dagger steadies. "Don't apologize," I say. I bare my teeth in a fierce grin. "You were worth it all. Every single moment." The blade breaks my skin as she steels herself for the killing blow. Behind her, Aelith's satisfied smirk makes my blood boil, but I keep my eyes locked on Rhea's face. If these are my last moments, I want to remember her. Even like this, torn and breaking, she's simply magnificent.
My parents sold me to the dark market.
I am the avatar of chaos, and nothing will stop me from fulfilling the prophecy.
Looks like you're the only one left. Take a step forward.
It's her. She's the woman from the prophecy. My key to godhood.
This is Delia. Starting price is 3 ducats.
You will wed soon and restore the Enoch family name.
Okay. I'll lower it down even more. 2 ducats. Who wants to buy Delia for 2 ducats?
She is my mate. Destiny has foretold it.
You don't know anything about me, and you want me to marry you?
You're nothing but a human toy to be used and discarded.
Hold on. How about 1 ducat? Does anyone want her?
A gilded cage is still a cage.
6 ducats. 6 ducats for Delia. I'll give you revenge on your parents if you marry me.
Okay, I'll marry you.
Godhood is mine for the taking.
Chapter 20. Rhea. My heart hammers violently against my ribcage, each beat a silent plea for the strength to do what must be done. The dagger in my hand feels heavier than the weight of the world as its point presses against Valen's chest. His crimson eyes, usually ablaze with an unyielding fire, now flicker with a grim resignation. The cold stone of the dungeon walls leeches the warmth from my body, and I shiver, though not from the chill. "I'm sorry," I whisper. "I have to." Valen's gaze holds mine, unwavering despite the pain he must be feeling. There's no anger in his eyes, only a deep, sorrowful understanding that slices through me sharper than any blade ever could. "Rhea," he murmurs softly, my name a sacred incantation on his lips. Aelith's laughter, cruel and victorious, reverberates off the stone walls as he watches from the sidelines. "Do it, little human," he taunts. Tears blur my vision, turning the dungeon into a watery tapestry of greys and shadows. I draw in a shaky breath, my fingers tightening around the hilt of the dagger. Every instinct screams at me to stop, to find another way, but the image of my parents, beaten, bruised, and bound, haunts me, fueling my resolve. "Forgive me," I choke out, and with a swift, merciless movement, I plunge the dagger into Valen's chest. His gasp of pain is a dagger to my own heart, and I feel him go rigid beneath my touch before his body sags against the chains that bind him. Blood wells up around the blade, staining his skin and my hands. The metallic scent of it fills my nostrils, mingling with the damp, earthy smell of the dungeon. "Vaelon," I cry out, my voice cracking with the force of my anguish. His eyes flutter, struggling to stay open, and in that moment, the world around us ceases to exist. There is no dungeon, no dark elves, no impossible choices, only Vaelon and the profound, soul-deep connection we share. "I love you," I confess, the words spilling from my lips in a rush of desperation and despair. Valen's breath hitches, a wet, gurgling sound that chills me to the bone. "Rhea," he rasps with a laborious effort. The room spins around me, a vortex of horror and desperation. I can't breathe, can't think past the roaring in my ears. "Vaelon," I choke out, my voice a mere whisper, lost in the cavernous dungeon. His eyes meet mine. I'm shaking uncontrollably, the dagger's point piercing his skin. The wound I've inflicted upon him is a physical manifestation of the agony tearing through my soul. "I can't lose you," I whisper softly. Tears stream freely down my face, each drop a testament to my torment. Vaelon manages a weak smile, his lips parting to speak, but I silence him with a desperate plea. "Give us a chance," I beg, the words tumbling from my lips in a rush of raw emotion. "Turn me into a Vraken." His eyes suddenly widen, a flicker of surprise, and something deeper, something unspoken, passing between us. Time stands still, the world holding its breath as we hang suspended in this moment of irrevocable transformation. With a strength that belies his injuries, Vaelon stands up tall and stretches his neck out. He soon places his mouth near the back of my neck. "Rhea, this is no gift," he warns, his voice steady despite the pain he must be feeling. "I don't care," I insist, my resolve hardening. "I won't let them take you from me. I won't let them win." Valen's gaze softens, a silent acceptance of the path I've chosen. His fangs glisten, a stark contrast to the pallor of his skin, and I brace myself for the pain I know is coming. The sharp, sudden sting of his fangs sinking into my neck is like nothing I've ever felt before. It's a violation, a branding of my very soul. And yet, there's an undeniable beauty in the act. The initial piercing pain quickly gives way to a warmth that spreads through my veins, a potent cocktail of agony and ecstasy that threatens to consume me whole. My breath hitches in my throat, a gasp of surprise and wonder as the venom courses through me. Each pulse of my racing heart carries the transformation further into my being. The world around us fades into insignificance. The damp stone walls and iron chains of our captivity melt away until there is only Vaelon and the sacred dance we find ourselves in. With a trembling hand, I reach up to cradle his face. Our eyes lock, and in that moment, I understand the true depth of our connection. It's more than just shared pain or a mutual thirst for revenge. It's a bond that transcends the physical realm, an eternal link between two souls that have found solace in each other's darkness. I drink from Vaelon in return, my lips pressed against the wound I've inflicted upon him. His blood, rich and potent, fills my mouth, and I swallow, the act both intimate and profound. It's a sacred communion, a sharing of life forces that deepens the bond between us. The transformation ripples through me, reshaping my very essence into something new, something powerful. My senses sharpen, the dank, musty air of the dungeon now alive with 1,000 new scents and sounds. I can hear the steady drip of water from a leak in the ceiling, the rapid beat of Valen's heart in sync with my own. The world is crisper, clearer, as if I've been seeing it through a veil that has now been lifted. I pull away, my injuries closing up as the transformation completes its course. The pain and fatigue that had been my constant companions since our capture are now distant memories. I feel a newfound strength coursing through every muscle in my body, a vitality that is both exhilarating and terrifying. My hands, once pale and delicate, are now strong and sure, the nails sharpened to fine points. I flex my fingers, marvelling at the changes wrought by Valen's venom. I can feel it, I whisper, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions raging within me. I can feel the power. Valen's eyes meet mine, a new understanding passing between us. Rhea, he says, my name a benediction on his lips. You are reborn. I nod knowingly, feeling the truth of his words in every fibre of my being. Together we will now be unstoppable, a sheer force to be reckoned with. The Dark Elves may have underestimated us before, but they won't make that mistake again. Raw power now courses through my veins, a wildfire that burns away my humanity and replaces it with something far more potent. I rise to my feet, my body uncoiling like a serpent poised to strike. My eyes are no longer the hazel of a human, but the glowing crimson orbs of a Vraken, fierce and unyielding. Aelith and his cohorts freeze, their arrogant smirks fading into masks of horror as they take in the transformation that has rendered me into something formidable. "What is this sorcery?" Aelith stammers, his voice echoing off the dungeon walls. Valen's voice, weak but defiant, cuts through the tension. "She is not your pawn any longer," he retorts. I flex my fingers, feeling the sharp sting of my claws as they slice through the air. The shadows of the dungeon seem to writhe around me, as if eager to do my bidding. "No," I agree, my voice a low growl that reverberates with the promise of retribution. "I am your worst nightmare." With a supernatural speed that leaves their heads spinning, I launch myself at the Dark Elves. My body moves with a lethal grace that I've never known before, each strike precise and deadly. Aelith's sword clashes against my arm, the impact sending sparks flying, but the blade does not pierce my skin. I am stronger, faster, and more resilient than I've ever been. I tear through them with a ferocity that shocks even me. My fangs sink into their flesh, the taste of dark elf blood metallic and bitter on my tongue. It is a taste I have never experienced, yet it feels as natural to me as breathing. The Dark Elves fall, one by one, their bodies crumpling under the onslaught of my wrath. I am a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless, and with each life I take, a small part of the pain and sorrow I have endured my entire life is avenged. As the last of them falls, I turn to Valen, my heart pounding in my chest. He hangs limply from his chains, his strength waning. I rush to his side, my hands fumbling with the locks that bind him. The metal gives way beneath my strong hands, and Valen slumps forward into my arms. "Drink now," I urge him, guiding his mouth to the nearest corpse. His lips press against the cold skin, and he drinks deeply, the Fracken venom working to heal his wounds. Colour slowly returns to his cheeks, and his eyes, once dim, now glow with renewed vigour. "Rhea," he murmurs, his voice laced with awe and gratitude. "You did it." I nod firmly, my own amazement mirrored in his gaze. "We did it," I correct him, because without him, I would still be that scared slave, dreaming of a life beyond these dark elf walls. Together, we are a testament to the strength that can be found in unity. The bond we share now is unbreakable, forged in the fires of our own adversity and solidified by the trials we have faced together. He takes my hand in his, our fingers intertwining in a silent vow of solidarity. "What now?" I ask, my voice tinged with curiosity. He stares deep into my eyes, his crimson eyes reflecting the flickering torchlight. "Now," he says, "together we continue our fight. Not just for revenge, but for a future free from the darkness that has consumed us for so long." I squeeze his hand tight, my resolve hardening. "Together," I affirm, the word a solemn oath between us. I cannot help but revel in the fact that we are no longer the hunted, we are now the hunters, and we will not rest until our enemies are vanquished and the world we inhabit is bathed in the light of a new dawn.
Chapter 21. Valen. The dark elf blood courses through my veins, healing my wounds. My strength returns with each passing second, but I can't take my eyes off Rhea. She stands among the carnage and inspects her handiwork. Her newfound power radiates from her like heat from a flame. My chest tightens suddenly. The guilt hits me hard. I've taken her humanity, the very thing that made her different from monsters like me. But watching her now, seeing the fierce determination in her eyes burning even brighter, I can't deny the surge of pride that mingles with my remorse. She turns to me. Her eyes glow with that familiar Vraken fire, but they're still hers. The transformation hasn't stripped away who she is. "I'm okay," she says, extending her hand to help me up. Better than okay. Her grip is strong now, matching my own. I can feel everything. The power, it's incredible. I pull myself up, steadying myself against the wall. "You shouldn't have had to make that choice," I mutter. "I made the only choice I could," she replies. Her voice carries a new edge of steel. "I wasn't going to watch you die." The words hit me like a physical blow. After centuries of solitude, of letting no one close to me, this woman chose to give up her humanity rather than lose me. The realization both humbles and terrifies me. "You're mine now," I say, the possessive words escaping before I can stop them. "And I'm yours. There's no going back from this." She steps closer, her movements fluid with her new grace. "Good. I don't want to go back," she admits. Her presence stirs something deep within me. My existence up to this point has been fueled by vengeance, a solitary figure consumed by the need to punish those who took everything from me. But now, as I look at her, I realize that my heart has shifted. The emptiness that once defined me is now filled with something entirely different, something I thought was lost forever. Love. I can't help but feel a surge of possessiveness. She's mine, marked by my venom, bound to me by an unbreakable tie. The thought of anyone trying to harm her again ignites a fierce protectiveness that I've never felt before. I lean in, my lips grazing her ear as I speak. You've given me something to fight for beyond revenge, Rhea. You've given me a reason to live. She pulls back slightly, her eyes locking onto mine. And you've shown me what it means to fight, to stand up for myself and for what's right. You've given me a future, she says, her voice filled with gratitude. Rhea's hands extend toward me, a silent offering. I take them in mine and pull her down on top of me, her body colliding with mine with a satisfying thud. She gasps, her breath hot against my neck. "Valen," she cries out, her voice filled with worry due to my healing injuries. I silence her protest with a kiss, fierce and claiming. Her lips part beneath mine, her initial resistance melting away as she succumbs to the undeniable heat between us. When we finally break apart, my gaze sweeps over her, taking in the fierce glow of her transformed eyes, the way her body hums with a power that's as much mine as it is hers. "Rhea, there's something I need to do now that I turned you into a Vraken," he says with a low growl. Her eyebrows arch in silent question, but there's a knowing glint in her eyes. She can feel the electric current that runs between us. "I want to mate with you," I declare. "Here, now, in this place that couldn't contain our spirits. I want to claim you as mine, fully and irrevocably, in your transformed state." A shiver runs through her, but her gaze doesn't waver. "Valen?" she breathes out, her voice a mixture of apprehension and desire. "Are you sure? After everything that's happened?" My hands cup her face, my thumbs caressing her cheeks. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," I say firmly. "You are my heart's choice, Rhea. My equal in every way." Her lips part, and I can see the rapid beat of her pulse in her neck, a rhythm that matches the drumming of my own Vraken heart. "Yes," she whispers, the single word hanging in the air like a sacred vow. My control snaps at her acquiescence. My lips crash onto hers with a hunger that's been building since I bit into her neck. She responds with equal fervor, her hands fisting in my tunic, pulling me closer. We soon break apart, gasping for air. I stand her up and walk her backward until her back hits the cold stone wall. She lets out a soft gasp, her eyes widening with surprise. My hands soon roam over her body, exploring the new strength that lies beneath her supple curves. "Valen," she whispers, my name a plea upon her lips. Her voice sends a jolt of desire through me. I can't resist the magnetic pull between us, the bond that has been forged in battle and solidified in blood. I lean in, my breath mingling with hers, our hearts pounding in unison. She gasps again as I lift her off the ground, her legs wrapping around my waist. I can feel the heat of her through the fabric of our clothes, a tantalizing promise of the inferno that awaits. "I need to feel you," I murmur against her mouth, my fingers working to free her from the constraints of her clothing. Her own hands fumble with my tunic, tugging it over my head and casting it aside. Her skin is soft beneath my fingertips, yet there's an undeniable power that courses just beneath the surface. "You're incredible," I say, my voice filled with awe and desire. Rhea smiles at me, a look of vulnerability flickering across her face. "Show me," she says, her voice a sultry dare. "This scene is about to get too steamy for this platform's comfort. As much as we'd love to keep going, their guidelines say we need to stop here."
To continue releasing these free audiobooks on this platform, we've got to play by the rules.
The passion doesn't end here.
Visit worldsofprotheka.com to hear the full, uncut version of this fantasy romance, and every daring moment that YouTube can't handle.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off unabridged audiobooks in the Worlds of Protheka.
Don't let YouTube hold you back. Immerse yourself in a world of magic, danger, and unfiltered passion.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
Listen unabridged and you'll never want to go back. Chapter 22. Rhea. The dungeon's air is thick with the metallic tang of blood and the musk of fear that clings to the stone walls. Valen moves with a quiet strength beside me, his crimson eyes scanning the shadows for danger. We work together like a well-oiled machine and dispatch the remaining Dark Elves with brutal efficiency. Each kill brings me a savage satisfaction, a testament to the power that now flows through my veins. We navigate the dark, labyrinthine corridors of the Dark Elf Manor. My senses are heightened to an almost painful degree. My vision pierces the darkness, every detail sharply defined, as if the world has been reborn. Valen's hand finds mine, his fingers intertwining with my own. "We'll find them," he assures me confidently. I nod firmly, squeezing his hand in silent gratitude. His presence is a comforting constant amidst the chaos, my beacon of hope in this forsaken place. We soon come upon a heavy wooden door, the scent of my parents' fear seeping through the cracks. My heart pounds loudly in my chest as Valen reaches for the iron handle, his muscles tense and ready for whatever lies beyond. The door creaks open slowly, revealing the dimly lit room where my parents have been held captive. The sight of them, bound and battered, ignites a fresh wave of fury within me. But as I step forward into the dim light, their eyes widen in shock at the sight of me, a Vraken, a creature of darkness and power. "Rhea?" she asks. My mother's voice is hoarse, disbelieving. She blinks as though trying to reconcile the daughter she remembers with the formidable being standing before her now. I kneel gently beside them, my hands working quickly to unshackle their bonds. "It's me," I reassure them, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside me. "I'm here to save you." My father, always the more stoic of the two, studies me with a mixture of awe and concern. "What have they done to you?" he asks, his gaze lingering on the faint glow of my eyes. Valen steps forward, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "She made a choice," he explains, his tone carrying an undercurrent of respect, "a choice to save us all." A tense silence fills the room as my parents take in his words, their expressions a complex tapestry of emotions. After a moment, my mother reaches out to touch my face, her fingers tracing the contours of my cheek. "You look so different," she whispers, a tear trailing down her weathered cheek. "I feel different," I admit, capturing her hand in my own. "But I'm still me." My father nods, his eyes softening as he looks at me. "We can see that," he says, his voice choked with emotion. "We're proud of you, Rhea, proud of the woman you've become." A rush of warmth floods through me at his words, a stark contrast to the cold existence I've known for most of my life. "Rhea, you must come with us," my father implores, his voice a hoarse whisper that barely carries across the room. "With your new abilities, you can help us free the other slaves." I feel the heaviness of his words settle upon my shoulders. My gaze drifts to Vaelon, who stands silently near the door now. His eyes are watchful, and his posture is rigid. I can sense the unease rolling off him in waves. "Your fight sounds truly noble," I begin, my voice steady despite the anguish brewing inside me. "But my place is no longer with you." My mother shakes her head, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "We've only just found you again, Rhea. We can't lose you to this darkness." A pang of guilt twists within me, but I steel myself against it. "The darkness you see in me is the same that fuels your desire for revenge. But I've found something more, someone more. Vaelon has shown me a different path." Valen's name hangs in the air. His gaze meets mine, and for a moment, I see a flicker of vulnerability in his crimson eyes, a silent plea that tugs at my very soul. I turn back to my parents, my resolve hardening. I have chosen to stand by Valen's side. We have a different fight, one that is intertwined with our very beings, I say firmly. But you're our daughter, my father protests, his voice cracking with emotion. How can we simply let you go? I reach out to take their hands in mine, the rough texture of their skin a stark reminder of all they've endured. You're not letting me go. You're setting me free to live the life I was meant to live. And I need you to do the same. Live, for yourselves and for those you can still save. A tense silence stretches between us, filled with unspoken words and the weight of our shared past. I can feel Valen's gaze upon me, a silent source of strength that bolsters my courage. Finally, my mother nods, a sad smile on her lips. You've always been stronger than you realised, Rhea. If this is truly what you want, then we will respect your choice, she confirms. My father hesitates for a moment longer before sighing in resignation. Take care of each other, he says, his gaze shifting between Vaelon and me. And remember that we love you, no matter what path you choose. Emotion wells up within me, a bittersweet cocktail of love, loss, and the promise of a future yet to be written. I lean in to embrace my parents, holding them close as if to imprint this moment upon my memory forever. I turn away from my parents. The significance of our imminent parting settles heavily upon my soul. The dungeon, once a place of despair, now feels like a crossroads of my past and future. I walk toward Vaelon, each step a testament to the choices I've made and the being I've become. His gaze meets mine, a silent question lingering in his crimson eyes. I reach out, my fingers brushing against his jaw, and pull him into a kiss that speaks volumes. It's a promise, a confession, and a declaration, all wrapped into one. His lips are soft, yet firm, moving against mine with a reverence that makes my heart ache with longing. When we finally pull apart, I can feel the burning stares of my parents upon us. I turn to face them, my hand still entwined with Valen's. I love him, I say simply, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions still raging within me. My parents exchange a glance, the tension in the room palpable. After a moment, my father steps forward, his eyes softening as he looks at us. We can see the love between you, he acknowledges, and we understand that you've found your true purpose with Vaelon. My mother nods in agreement, her gaze shifting from me to Vaelon. You've both been through so much, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. If this is the path you choose, then we give you our blessing. A sense of relief washes over me, the tightness in my chest easing slightly. Thank you, I breathe out, gratitude shining in my eyes. Vaelon, ever the silent sentinel, finally speaks. We are in your debt, he says, his deep voice resonating within the stone walls. Your blessing means more than you know. My father waves away the sentiment, a hint of his old strength returning to his voice. No debts between family, he insists. We're just glad to see our daughter happy and fighting for a cause she believes in. I smile at their words, feeling a pure warmth spread through me. Despite the darkness that has defined so much of my life, I've found a ray of light in Vaelon and in the love of my parents. We could use your help, Valen interjects, his gaze shifting to the bodies of the Dark Elves strewn across the dungeon floor. We need to dispose of the bodies and cover our tracks. My father nods, understanding the gravity of the situation. We'll take care of it, he assures us, a determined look in his eyes. You two have a larger fight ahead of you. As we leave the dungeon, I can't help but feel a sense of closure. I've made my choice, embracing my new existence as a Vraken and the life that comes with it. With Vaelon by my side, I know that we can face whatever challenges lie ahead. Vaelon pulls me close, his arm wrapped protectively around my shoulders. Are you ready? He asks, his voice a low rumble in his chest. I lean into him, drawing strength from his presence. I'm ready, I reply with determination, my gaze fixed ahead. With my parents' blessing and Valen's love, I step into the unknown, ready to face our future, whatever it may hold.
Orcs. Gargoyles. Vampires. Ice monsters. Demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive. Chapter 23. Rhea. The scent of victory mingles with the metallic tang of blood throughout the Dark Elf manor. It's a potent reminder of the lives we've taken and the freedom we've claimed. Valen sweeps me off my feet, eliciting a startled laugh from me as he carries me over the threshold, away from the stains of battle. My heart flutters with a mixture of adrenaline and the newfound joy that has blossomed amidst our struggle. His arms are steadfast bands around my waist as he weaves through the carnage. As we reach the grand suite of the Dark Elf Noble Master, Valen kicks the door open with a flourish, revealing a room of opulent decadence that stands in stark contrast to the chaos we've left behind. He sets me down gently, and I can't help but notice the care he takes to avoid the pools of blood that mar the intricate mosaic floors. Inside the bedroom, the air is thick with the remnants of exotic incense and the ghosts of past indiscretions. Vaelon leads me over to the plush bed. Its silk coverlets are cool against my skin as I sit down. He looks at me with those crimson eyes, a playful smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Is this human tradition when mating officially?" he asks, his voice a low rumble that sends a shiver down my spine. I can't help but laugh, the sound light and airy in the heavy silence of the room. "You mean like after a wedding?" I ask, my fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from his face. "Are you saying that you want to marry me? Do you want to be my husband?" His smile broadens, the sight of it heartbreakingly beautiful. "Yes, Rhea, I want to be with you in every way that matters, forever. Will you marry me?" he proposes. My breath hitches in my throat, his words settling over me like a warm, comforting blanket. I had never dared to dream of such a moment, yet here it is, unfolding in the most unlikely of places. "Yes," I whisper, the word barely louder than a breath. "Yes, Vaelon, I will be your wife." His lips find mine in a kiss that is both a promise and a declaration of the life we will build together. It is gentle and fierce, a reflection of the delicate balance of our existence. When we pull apart, he starts exploring my body with his powerful hands. His touch is electric, each caress igniting a trail of fire across my newly empowered body. I revel in the strength that courses through my veins, a gift from the man who now gazes at me with a mixture of hunger and adoration. "You are magnificent," Vaelon murmurs, his fingers tracing the contours of my shoulders, down my arms, exploring the terrain of my newfound power. I smile, a surge of confidence welling up within me. "And you," I say, my voice steady and sure, "are about to discover just how magnificent I can be." With a playful shove, I push him back onto the bed, his surprised laughter music to my ears. I straddle him, my hands pinning his wrists to the mattress, and lean down to claim his lips in a searing kiss. Our tongues dance together, a sensual duel that leaves us both breathless. I break away, trailing kisses down his jawline, nipping at his ear before continuing my descent. His breath hitches as I reach the column of his throat, his pulse pounding beneath my lips. I can feel the vibration of his groan as I release his wrists and continue my exploration, my hands sliding over the firm planes of his chest, the taut muscles of his abdomen. Valen's hands find their way into my hair, guiding me lower, an unspoken request hanging in the air between us. I meet his gaze, a sultry smile playing on my lips as I inch my way down his body, my intentions clear.
Sorry for the interruption. I know you were gearing up for a steamy scene, but it's way too hot for this platform.
If we want to keep sharing our stories for free, we have to abide by this platform's guidelines.
To get the full unabridged audiobook, go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Browse through unabridged audiobooks, countless ebooks and bundles offered at a discount.
If the thought of me whispering all the dirty details into your ear isn't enticing enough, use discount code YouTube30 to get 30% off of all digital products.
Story after story, audiobook after audiobook, the Worlds of Protheka are waiting for you.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
But unabridged, it's unforgettable.
Chapter 24. Vaelon. Months have passed since the night Rhea and I turned the tide of our personal war against the Dark Elves. We've become a force to be reckoned with, a nightmare lurking in the shadows of their once impregnable territory. The forests and caverns that were once our hiding places have now witnessed the fall of many a dark elf warrior. With each skirmish, Rhea's prowess grows, her human past becoming a distant memory as she wields her newfound Vraken abilities with deadly precision. Tonight, the remnants of our latest encounter with the enemy lie strewn about us, a grim tableau that speaks of our relentless pursuit of justice. I watch Rhea as she moves among the fallen, her gaze cool and assessing. There's a fierceness in her now, a predatory grace that belies the gentle soul I once knew. She has truly embraced this life, this curse, and turned it into a weapon of unimaginable potency. "We've done it, Vaelon," she says, her voice carrying the weight of our victories and the losses we've endured to achieve them. "We've torn their world apart, just as they did to ours." I step closer, my hand finding the small of her back. The connection between us is electric, a current that courses through my veins and grounds me to the present. "We've avenged our pasts," I reply, my tone low and steady. "But it's the future that concerns me now." She turns to me, the ghost of a smile playing upon her lips. "And what future is that?" she asks. My gaze holds hers, unflinching. One where we are not bound by the chains of hatred and revenge. One where we can simply be. I say, my voice filled with hope. Rhea's smile widens, and she moves into my embrace, her head resting against my chest. I can feel the steady thrum of her heartbeat, a rhythm that matches my own. "I like the sound of that," she murmurs. Together, we stand in silence, the quiet comfort of each other's presence a balm against the chaos we've wrought. The cool night air whispers around us, carrying with it the promise of a new dawn, one that we will face side by side, as mates, as equals, as survivors of a war that has shaped us in ways we could never have imagined. I lean down, pressing a kiss to the top of her head, my arms tightening around her. My gaze lingers on her. The moonlight bathes her in an ethereal glow. She stands tall and unbroken now. A silent understanding has always passed between us, an alpha and his mate, bound by blood and battle. But there is a shadow that has stretched between us. It is time to cleanse it, to lay bare my soul, and seek her absolution. With a determined breath, I lower myself onto my knees before her. The gesture is both a declaration of my love and an admission of my guilt. My hands cradle her boot gently, reverently. "Valen," she whispers, her voice tinged with surprise. She tries to pull away to bring me back to my feet, but I am resolute. "Rhea," I begin, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. I lift my eyes to meet hers. "I seek your forgiveness for telling you that your parents were dead when we first met." Her brow furrows, the the muscles in her jaw clenching as she processes my words. I was a coward, I admit, my grip on her boot tightening. I let my own selfish desires cloud my judgment that day. I didn't want to risk losing you to them, to the life you might have chosen had you known they were still out there alive. I feared that your love for them would overshadow your potential feelings for me, and I couldn't bear the thought of it. Rhea remained silent, her gaze penetrating my very being. I can see the storm of emotions raging within her. Confusion, anger, betrayal. But beneath it all, there is a glimmer of understanding, a testament to the unspoken connection that binds us together. I've carried this guilt since that night in the manor, where we were chained like beasts, I continue. The thought of you ever doubting my intentions, my love for you, it is a burden I can no longer bear. I release her boot and rise to my feet, standing before her in all my vulnerability. I love you, Rhea, more than life itself, more than the revenge that has consumed me for centuries. You are my heart, my soul, my everything. And if you cannot forgive me for my transgressions, I will accept spending eternity alone. Her eyes search mine, delving into the depths of my being. Then, slowly, she steps forward, closing the distance between us. Her hands reach up to cup my face, her touch gentle. "Valen," she says, her voice resonating with a strength that belies her tender touch. "You are a warrior, a leader. You have faced the darkest parts of yourself to emerge stronger. Your guilt, your regret, they are part of what makes you who you are. And I love you, all of you, for those very reasons." Her thumb brushes across my lower lip, a silent promise of redemption. "I forgive you," she whispers. "Rhea's forgiveness is a gift I do not deserve, but one I will cherish for all the days of my existence." "Rhea," I say suddenly, "there is something I must ask of you." Her eyes search mine with a quiet intensity. "Valen, what is it?" she asks. I reach for the dagger at my side, the very one that bound us together during those first few days. I extend it toward her. My hand is steady, even though my heart threatens to burst from my chest. "Take this," I implore, the words tasting of both fear and freedom. "Use it to bind me to your will, to control me, forever." Rhea recoils, her eyes widening in shock. "Valen, I could never—" she stammers. "Please," I interrupt. "This is my choice, my desire. To serve you, to love you, is my life's purpose now." She shakes her head, her gaze filled with confusion and concern. "But why, Valen? Why would you surrender your very freedom to me?" she asks. I take a deep breath, allowing the truth to pour from my lips like a sacred confession. "Because it is the greatest expression of my love for you. In my world, to serve is to honor, to dedicate one's very being to another. And I wish to honor you, Rhea, above all others, I profess." Her lips part in silent contemplation, and for a moment I fear she will refuse, that my request is too much for her to bear. But then her hand reaches out, her fingers brushing against the hilt of the dagger. "Vaelon," she whispers, her voice laden with the enormity of her decision. "I never wanted a slave. I want an equal, a partner." I nod, understanding her hesitation. "And that is what you shall have. For in my servitude I find my greatest strength, the strength to stand by your side, not behind you." She takes the dagger from my hand. "Very well," she says, resolve firming her features. "If this is truly your wish." I close my eyes, a sense of calm washing over me as I prepare to surrender myself to her completely. I feel the sharp sting of the blade as she draws it across my palm, the blood welling up to meet the cool night air. "By the ancient rights of my people," I begin, my voice resonating with the solemnity of the moment. "I, Valen, do willingly and without reservation bind myself to you, Rhea. I vow to serve you, to protect you, to love you for all the days of my life." Rhea mirrors my actions, cutting her own palm and entwining her fingers with mine. The mingling of our blood is a sacred pact, a symbol of the unbreakable bond that now unites us. "I accept your service, Valen," she says, her voice steady and sure. "But know this, I will never use this power to dominate you. We are partners, now and forever." A surge of energy courses through our joined hands, a visible shockwave that ripples through the air and settles within the very marrow of my bones. The ritual is complete. I am hers, body and soul, bound by a love that transcends the physical realm. I rise to my feet, my body thrumming with newfound purpose. I am no longer a mere warrior, a creature of vengeance and bloodshed. I am a guardian, a protector, a devoted servant to the woman who has claimed not only my loyalty, but my heart. In this moment, I am whole, I am complete, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that I have made the right choice. For Rhea is not just my queen, she is my redemption, my salvation, my eternal mate. And I will spend the rest of my days proving to her that my love is as boundless as the night sky above us.
Chapter 25. Rhea. 3 months have passed since we ended our reign of terror over the Dark Elves and performed the ancient Vraken ritual. The dimly lit chamber of our new sanctuary is a stark contrast to the chaos we've left behind. Valen, my Valen, kneels before me. His scars tell a tale of a past filled with sorrow and pain. But tonight, he is not that warrior. He is mine, bound to me not just by love, but by the ritual that has made him my willing slave. I step toward him, each footfall a whisper against the stone floor. My heart races, not with fear or uncertainty, but with a newfound power that thrums in my veins. I am no longer a powerless slave. I am a Vraken queen. Valen's gaze is lowered in submission, his broad shoulders heaving with restrained desire. I lift his chin with a single finger, and his crimson eyes meet mine, filled with a hunger that matches my own. "Look at you," I say. "So strong, yet here you are, at my mercy." "Always, my queen," he replies, his voice resonant and low. "I am yours to command." I undress slowly, letting the fabric of my garments fall to the floor. The cool air kisses my skin, and I revel in the freedom of my transformed body. Valen's gaze lingers on me, his eyes drinking in the sight of my naked form, but he remains still, as disciplined as ever. I step closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. My fingers brush against his moist lips, and I see the muscles in his jaw clench, fighting the urge to take control. "You desire me," I state. "With every fibre of my being," he admits, his voice strained. I lean in, my lips hovering just above his ear. "And yet, you wait for my command," I say in a sultry whisper. "Yes, my queen," he says, his voice a deep growl that sends a shiver down my spine. The power I hold over him is exhilarating, a heady rush that intoxicates me. I can feel the wetness between my thighs, a testament to my arousal. I glance down and see the bulge in his trousers, evidence of his own desire. I walk behind him, my fingertips trailing along the back of his neck, feeling the tremor that runs through him at my touch. "You are mine, Vaelon," I say, my voice steady and commanding. "Mine to pleasure, mine to command."
As much as Samara and I want to finish what these two characters have started, it looks like this chapter is about to get too hot for this platform to handle.
Unfortunately, we have to pause here because their guidelines won't allow us to reveal the spiciest details.
To keep bringing you these free audiobooks, we have to follow their rules.
But don't worry. You can experience the full, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com, where the boundaries of passion and fantasy collide.
Use code YouTube30 for 30% off any of our unabridged audiobooks set in the rich and immersive worlds of Protheka.
Protheka's magic is eternal.
With these scenes, it will be unforgettable.